I'd like to call the September 13th meeting of the Plaquemines Parish Council to order at 1:34 p.m. Machine is open for roll call. The record reflect 8 council members are present. Councilmember Black is en route, hopes to be here before the end of the meeting. At this time, I'm going to list the items that will be deferred. Item 1A1, executive session, is going to be deferred. Item 6B, 6C, and 6D will be deferred. 1A1 will be deferred. 6B, C, and D will be deferred. Does anyone else have anything other than those items? No. Okay, let's move to 1B, please.
Proclamations. A proclamation declaring September 13, 2018 as the Plaquemines Gazette Day in the parish of Plaquemines.
Councilmember Lapine.
I'll offer and ask for unanimous second.
Councilmember Lapine offers, and he receives a unanimous second. Ms. Barber.
A proclamation declaring September 13, 2018 as the Plaquemines Gazette Day in the parish of Plaquemines. Whereas on July 28, 2018, the Plaquemines Gazette celebrated its 90th year of publication. Throughout 90 years of continuous service, the Plaquemines Gazette has reported both the joyous events of the citizens of Plaquemines Parish, as well as the devastation caused by natural and man-made disasters, and the parish's resilience and recovery each and every time. And whereas Norris Babin and Dale Benoit, publishers of the paper since 1985, are fourth in line of owners and publishers of the Plaquemines Gazette, which was formed by the 1928 consolidation of the Plaquemines Protector, established in 1886, and the Lower Coast Gazette, established in 1909. The first publisher was J. Ben Meyer. Following Meyer in the early 1940s until 1981, the husband and wife team of Joseph and Juanita Spendker published the Plaquemines Gazette. Local business owners Thomas Poppich and brother Joseph Poppich published the Plaquemines Gazette from 1981 to 1985. And whereas believed to be the oldest continuously operated business in Plaquemines Parish, the Plaquemines Gazette has employed dozens of parish residents over the years, working to provide an award-winning publication chronicling the lives of Plaquemines residents for 90 years. Current publishers have continued to modernize the paper, offering both print and online editions, bringing those stories to local Plaqueminians and expatriates worldwide. Now, therefore, be it proclaimed by the Plaquemines Parish Council, represented by its duly authorized chairman, Nicole Williams, and by concurrence of the parish president, Amos Cormier, representing the Plaquemines Parish government, that it hereby declares September 13, 2018 as the Plaquemines Gazette Day in the parish of Plaquemines.
Councilmember Lapine? Yes. Proclamation has been offered and he had a unanimous second. Let's open the machine for voting.
Excuse me.
Yes, sir. Wait. I can't cut you on because we're in the middle of voting. If you just hold on 1 second. Yeah, can we do a recall? Let me see what the parish president has to say. Yes, sir, go ahead.
That was an incorrect statement. This is without the concurrence of the administration.
Okay, let the record reflect that statement, please. Okay. At this time, Mr. Lapine offers, and there was a unanimous second. The machine is open.
No discussion, no comment first?
Well, we got to vote on it first, right?
No, not before we vote. I have something to say.
Mr. Russo, would you like to speak?
Yeah, I do.
I thought we had to vote on it before we could even speak.
There's always discussion before a vote.
Okay,
You know,
Mr. Lapine.
I want to say this. I worked for the Gazette for the Senkers. And I enjoyed working there, but I mean, that's what, I mean, we always have discussion before the vote because it might sway somebody. I might sway somebody at the table to vote one way or the other, you know?
Okay.
So when do we start voting before we have discussion? Okay. Anyway, let me
I
just
thought
say
we
this.
always voted first
No, we've never voted before
on
we have discussion.
proclamations, and then we discussed them.
Anyway, my point is this. Let me congratulate y'all as the owners of the paper, your fourth owners from what I heard just now. In these days of fake news and all of these things that happen around the country, a newspaper that comes out and has the facts is something that I appreciate. And I'm hoping that, you know, we can continue to be able to read true facts in newspapers, to be able to understand what goes on in our community. And as a community newspaper, I look forward to looking at that, to make sure that we are getting the true facts. And I'm feeling comfortable that the newspaper prints the truth. They do what they do best, and that's provide news. And a community paper provides more than news. It provides sports and other things. But that's what I see as a newspaper. And in these days, when we have all of what goes on in social media and all of the things that you don't know whether to believe or not, I hope that we can continue to believe what we read in a local newspaper. So having said that, the reason I wanted to make this point is that, you know, when I was a young boy, I used to fold the Gazette for 50 cents an hour with an ivory bone. We'd insert it, 6-pager. If we had a 4-pager, we folded it, but we'd insert it. And Mr. Clarence and Mr. Sanka and them were there, and I worked in that place for 50 cents an hour. And I enjoyed it, and that's my history with the paper. Later on, I had a history with the paper after y'all became owner, and I didn't always agree with what was written in the paper, like in an editorial. I remember one time an editorial was written about my father and I made a comment to Mr. Benoit about I didn't agree with it, and Mr. Benoit said, well, when you own the paper, you can write what you want. And I agree. You own the paper. So at the end of the day, you know, that's what I remember about the Gazette, and unfortunately it, you know, is now in a venue of the world where people don't know what to believe. So I hope that you continue to write good things and write the truth. Having said that, I'm ready to vote.
Mr. Burt?
Now you want to vote. Congratulations, Dale and Norris and staff. They have some staff members here. 90 years is a long time to have a paper in circulation, so congratulations on 90 years of being in business. Not you guys, but of course the paper in itself.
Mr. Edgecombe?
I just want to say congratulations to y'all, mimicking what Benny and Charlie said, and also thank y'all for always being very helpful with the nonprofit organizations in the parish. I appreciate that.
President Cormier?
Yes, I feel it incumbent upon me to explain the lack of concurrence. In this week's Gazette, on page 4, and I'll quote, Robert Bornett, the contract attorney who filed the 4 suits in September 2016, while working for late parish president Amos Cormier, Jr., Bornett, along with Terrio and each individual council member who voted to authorize the 2016 suits, are named as defendants. It's, as Councilman Russo said, it's very important to stick to the facts. Just for the record, my father was deceased in June of 2016. So when these suits were filed in September 2016 and after, I think it's misleading, to say the least, and a lack of fact-checking to make such a statement. And so it is very important that we check our facts in today's world of fake news, and that was the basis.
Thank you, sir. Any other questions or comments from the table? Want to let the audience speak, or? Mr. Benoit wants to speak. Come up, Mr. Benoit.
Madam Chairman, council members, I want to thank you very much for this proclamation. 90 years is a long time. Norris and I are fortunate to have been the caretakers of the paper for about a third of that tenure. A lot of people have come through the Plaquemines Gazette doors. Mr. Russo, the job is still open if you ever need some part-time work.
50 cents an hour, too, huh?
So we consider ourselves custodians of the paper. The paper really belongs to the community. We're in an environment where newspapers are changing. You hear all the stories about the consolidations and mergers and papers that are going out of business. Well, fortunately for us, unfortunately for the industry, that mainly is taking place in the daily newspaper trade. As a result of it, the community newspapers have become stronger. More people are looking for local news, which you can't always get anymore in the daily papers. With the advent of the internet and electronic editions, our paper now goes everywhere. We get comments from readers from across the world. So it is an exciting environment. And of course, it's nice to say that you're the publisher of the paper, but the publisher does very little. It's mainly the staff that puts out the quality publication. That's an award-winning publication. You all know Jason. Jason covers the meetings weekly and does a great job. We also have our legals clerk, Amber Pertini, here today. And then Brandy Rollo has been the individual who's actually done all the composition of the newspaper for many years now. And of course, I do what I do with the support of my wife, who is here also today. So it's an honor that we really appreciate. I want to thank Councilman Lapine for doing this for us, and I thank all of you for your support. And Mr. Cormier, my door is always open. You know where I live. You know my phone number. If you ever have a problem with anything in the paper, you know how to find me. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Norris, do you want to speak, or did he sum it up? Come on, Mr. Henry.
All right. Hey, you know, Dale and I always disagreed on everything. But Norris, you'll always be my friend, man. You'll always be my friend, Norris. But congratulations on the newspaper. But look, man, this is a political time, man. This shouldn't have been done today. This should have been done next year sometime.
I'd like to thank everybody. I wasn't sure if we were going to talk before the vote or after the vote, but it's working out anyway. And, you know, I just want to mirror what Dale said. We believe that we're caretakers for this. This is something we believe in. We work hard. We're not perfect at it, but we're here, and we're always here to answer if there's something to answer to. In addition to the staff, you see, we do have a couple of other people. Melinda, my wife, that works in accounting, and we have Janie Scarabin that works a little bit everywhere, including from Belchase to Buras. And we have Gene Oquin, who sometimes delivers papers to Barbara McCott. Sometimes he puts them in the building and they disappear before she gets your copies. But thank you so much. We feel privileged to be here and be a part of Plaquemines Parish. Thank you.
Thank you. There are no other comments. We will move to a vote. I'm positive. Proclamation is adopted unanimously. Y'all want to come up and we'll take a picture?
What paper are you going to put?
What paper we putting? Jason, get somebody to take the picture.
Sure.
How you doing, Ms. Barber? Stella got a groove back.
Come on, Mr. John. Okay, y'all ready? 3, 2, 1. 3, 2, 1. All right. You can move. You can blink.
Excuse me? I'm talking.
Me too. I want to move to 7 on. I'm going to do his report. Where they at?
That was for.
681. 681.
At this time, at the request of Councilmember Roussel, he would like to move to item 6A1 on the agenda.
An ordinance to amend and as amended readopt Section 22-8(1) of the Code of Ordinances to establish water rates and otherwise to provide with respect thereto.
Councilmember Roussel.
I'll offer next for a second.
Councilmember Roussel offers. Is there a second? Seconded by Mr. Juneau. Councilmember Roussel.
Yes, what this does is it takes and creates the category for all billing purposes. The Water Department shall treat the meeting halls of all bona fide veterans organizations, such as the American Legion or the Veterans of Foreign Wars, as residential properties under Section 22-8(1)(a)(3), provided the average monthly usage is under 1,000 gallons. All regulatory rules associated with commercial property shall nevertheless be followed by the meeting halls of veterans organizations. And what this does, this is allow the meeting halls that do not use really any water, it's under 1,000 gallons, who are now being commercialized, to have a lower rate as a residential home, which in fact they consider is their home. So that's what it does, and I ask for your support.
Any questions from the table or comments? Questions or comments from the audience? Mr. Henry.
Hey, look, according to this ordinance right here, just like giving, what about the churches? They shouldn't be have commercial things too. If they're on 1,000 gallons, why can't they be residential? Why are you doing this?
I'm doing it because I support the veterans and the military. Ask a question.
I support the veterans too.
Okay.
But churches pay taxes, and they're supposed to be non-profit. What about organizations like that? Why should one get a ride and the others don't? I mean, hey, that's America, though, you know. I'm being honest and I'm being straight about it. If you do one for one, you got to do one for all.
Sean.
I really do believe if we have non-profit organizations here that under $1,000 shouldn't be charged commercial rates, if you give this a break, you know. I really do think somebody ought to think about doing this. I'm not against this. I'm not against it. But let's do it for others too. Could I get some kind of thing that somebody produce something like that for churches?
It's something that can be looked into, Mr. Henry.
Oh, something could be looked into, but I can't get a guarantee it'll really come to fruition. I'm just saying, I'm letting the people know, what you do for one, you do for all. You're starting to open a can of worms here, and it should be fair for all. For all. You know, we just the Pledge of Allegiance, liberty and justice for all. That's all.
Any other questions or comments? Hearing none, the machine is open. Legislation passes 8-0.
Let me thank you all for coming today, and
For your
I
service.
do support your efforts and I respect your efforts, and I didn't want to see anything take away from your efforts today, but politics are what they are. So thank you for your service. Thank you very much.
We all in support
Not on the agenda.
Status report by the parish president.
After this, we're going to move to item 7. 7E. After this, we'll move to 7E. President Cormier?
Yes, for the record, Plaquemines Parish President Amos Cormier. This is the status report for August 23rd through September 13th, 2018. August 27th, we had a directors meeting. It was very productive. I find these meetings to be a good opportunity, keep a general pulse on what's going on throughout the parish. Later that day, had a meeting with Mr. Frank Newell regarding our pending permit before the United States Army Corps of Engineers regarding Mardi Gras Pass. That comment period closed in March. It was brought up in our trip to D.C., and we hope to have that resolution of that, a passage of that soon, approval, I should say. Tuesday, August 28th, had a meeting with Phillips 66, some members of the Corps as well. It was regarding levees, the reach that still has not had the NOV, NFL lifts. Those discussions are complex, given the nature that there's also a proposal by CPRA to cut a hole, a canal through that same reach. But those briefings will continue. Later that evening, we had one of our final town hall meeting regarding coastal restoration, the synopsis of which is that there are pretty much two ways to deliver sediment. I think everyone wants sediment to rebuild our coastal wetlands. That's what provides us with protection from storms, especially if it's saltwater and brackish water marsh protection. Something that dredging can do, and something that freshwater diversions will not be able to do insofar as protecting the saltwater and brackish water marsh. My administration has authored no less than 20 letters listing numerous objections, and those letters have been published on the parish website, and the letters pretty much speak for themselves. But my administration's stance has begun yielding some small dividends. One was that recently, as we heard at the last council meeting, Plaquemines now has one appointee, Mr. Bill Bubrick. That was not the case prior to this. And even though, but caution has to be maintained, because that's one out of a vote of over 10. Small steps forward. On Wednesday, August 29th, administration had a meeting regarding Belle Chase water treatment plant expansion. I think there's legislation on the table today regarding that. condolences go out to Mr. George Casto's family and Mr. Jimmy Bartholomew's family, both good members of our community and our citizenry in Plaquemines. Our thoughts and prayers are with them. On Saturday, September 1st, there was a wonderful time had by all at the Grand Bayou reunion. A wonderful family event, and people came from various parts of the country down to Grand Bayou and celebrated their roots and the historic culture there that go along with it. It was thanks to Miss Rosina Phillips who spoke at this council, and that was the basis for one of the letters of objection, because there are numerous Indian burial grounds throughout our parish in Barataria Bay, and she was the one who highlighted that to us, and that's been incorporated into the one of our letters. On Monday, September 3rd, Labor Day, we had to call a special meeting in the Emergency Operations Office. As you all know, we were dealing with a tropical storm which became Hurricane Gordon. Thankfully, we did not have to bear that storm. Its meetings were held on Tuesday, September 4th, all day regarding that. One of the principal concerns since, as we all know from Hurricane Isaac, where a couple of our citizens drowned, the HISDRA system has been a real game changer. And water seeks the lowest section. On the east side, with the 26-foot high wall put up that encompasses St. Bernard, in Hurricane Isaac, that water hit the wall and came back. On the west side, one of our weakest points is the Jesuit Bend area. That's the one of the lowest levees, and also with the building and construction of the Western Closure Complex. If we ever do get hit with a hurricane from the Barataria Bay side, the waters that are going to be pumped out of Jefferson and Algiers from the Western Closure Complex are going to come back and seek the nearest, lowest levee, and that's going to be the Jesuit Bend area. And that's also another part, forms the basis of another letter of objection that we put to in the EI Environmental Impact Statement record, in that, one, this has the potential of causing a channel. We all heard that, heard about the Mr. Go, and how that was formed a hurricane alley. We share these concerns here and are waiting to hear back as to how these concerns will be addressed. We also did have conversations, though, with CPRA during the threat of Hurricane Gordon, and they were fruitful. And none of this is personal. This is just business, and this administration's job is to protect the best interests of Plaquemines Parish. But we did have some fruitful conversations about. I requested that if the Highway 39 gate were to be closed, that we be given sufficient advance notice so that we would be able to take the necessary steps on the East Bank of Plaquemines. On Friday, September 7th, had our breakfast meeting. It was one of the first with our new Joint Base Commander, Captain Scarpino. Captain Cicada was wonderful to work with, and I have every reason to believe that Captain Scarpino will follow in that same line. We discussed several issues, one of which was he was going to look into and see if he could get me a name at the Department of Defense with whom the parish government could reach out to and see if there's the budget for Department of Defense is massive. It's huge. So to request another $50,000 of financing for a future Belle Chase Bridge would be a drop in the bucket for them. If we could secure such money, we might be able to convince the state that there would be no necessity for a toll. That's something we will continue to work on. Also on that day, signed a contract from the IT department regarding cloud-based services for the water department. I feel that we should have some redundancy in that system. The weakness of a cloud-based system is that if there are internet issues, the data cannot be accessed. We're looking at different options, local server system backup or hard drive. But given the importance of our water services, I think it would be prudent and wise to have some redundancy there. Monday, September 10th, I want to thank, we had our pre-council meeting, and want to thank council members Roussel, Bartholomew, Trufant, and Juneau for their attendance. It's a testament to these council members who regularly show up, testament to their willingness to cooperate with this administration and to work together for the good of Plaquemines Parish. Also had on that day the Mississippi River Bar Pilots Board of Administrators meeting. For the record, the Plaquemines Parish President has always been on the Board of Administrators of the Crescent City River Bar Pilots and is on the Mississippi River Bar Pilots Committee. And that's because I agree with their interpretation that the Plaquemines Port Harbor and Terminal District is a consolidated district as was voted upon by the people of Plaquemines. On Tuesday, September 11th, I want to thank Councilman Roussel. I had another obligation come up. Thank him for attending the Regional Planning Commission meeting on our behalf. We had discussed matters before because there was an issue at the last meeting. Someone had put on the agenda the issue of the tolls, and I stated that I could not support that, and Councilman Roussel I think felt likewise. That matter, we're requesting more information regarding this. When my administration wrote a letter in support of the $45 million grant for the project, I specifically stated that I wanted to make sure that all financing alternatives were analyzed, such as going to the Department of Defense, such as other revenue streams in place of tolls. the Scarsdale Pump Station Hazard Mitigation Project, there was a pre-bid meeting held the other day. The bid opening is scheduled for September 25th. That's a weak spot that we have on the East Bank. The Scarsdale Pump Station is the one remaining spot where the levee elevation there is about 8 feet. Everywhere else, we've built that up to about 12 feet. And with this project, we'll be able to elevate the pump station and thereby elevate the levee system below it to the same height. I just recently signed a receipt and release in a concursus proceeding. Plaquemines Parish Government, Hillcore Energy, and State of Louisiana signed the agreements in oil and gas concursus cases. These cases were filed as far back as spring of 2004 by the operators and dealt with tidal conflicts in several unitized tracts in West Bay. This council approved settlement in both cases in the spring of 2016. Plaquemines Parish, my administration and the state agreed to 80% to 20% split in favor of Plaquemines Parish government in 2 of the disputed tracts. And then we shared a split in half from the other proceeds. This is a reason why, yet another reason why, that I put a letter of objection into the record. I'm glad to hear we had a meeting this morning, or rather this afternoon, earlier, about another district that's part of our consolidated government here in Plaquemines, which were the levee districts. We're blessed in Plaquemines to have these revenue streams. The state has argued in the past and will continue to argue state law, which is that if it becomes a water bottom, then the state has ownership and the state takes the mineral royalties. Our legal team has done a good job of arguing the freezing statute where applicable, but this is another reason why we need, not only is it important to protect our saltwater and brackish water marsh and wetlands for hurricane protection, but also it secures a revenue stream that pays for a lot of the services to our parish. I also want to just briefly I'm going to cite, there's been some confusion regarding resolution number 18-190, and I'll just hand a copy, Councilman Lapine. Yeah, while I give some of the facts on this, Councilman Lapine, if you will, just, if you could please look, there were some statements made that I just want to clarify. If you could look and find in the...
Copy for everybody?
No, I don't. If you could find in the Be It Resolved section where it states revenue bonds, and while you do that, I want to address something that occurred back a few weeks ago. My office was presented with paperwork for my signature as Plaquemines Parish President. When I saw the paperwork, it was regarding a $650 million bond issue. Now, as Plaquemines Parish President, I represent Plaquemines Parish government. And so my signature carries weight for the government. Now, I recognize that the Parish Council is the sole governing authority of the Port, Harbor, and Terminal District. But a signature from a parish president, any parish president, has effect and would tend to obligate Plaquemines Parish government. When we requested more documentation regarding this matter, because that is a lot of money, $650 million. We did not receive any documentation back, and this is where I'm going to ask for a little bit more communication from the Port Harbor and Terminal District so that we can avoid some of this confusion. I did receive from the Port Harbor and Terminal District Council, Meredith Hawthorne, an email where she stated that that the documentation was sent to me in error. What I would like, and I don't know, just, to clarify this, Councilman Lapine, have you found where it says in the section, be it resolved, revenue bonds?
I haven't looked at it, Mr. Cormier.
Okay.
For clarification, the assistant director for the port sitting here, maybe he can give some clarification.
Please, by all means, if
Mr. Matthews, would you like to come up?
If he could point out, please hand him the resolution if he could point out. But the question, Mr. Matthews didn't make the public statements, Councilman Lapine, you did.
I sure did.
Yeah. So, yes.
I don't want this to be political. We're trying to handle business here.
Okay. Well, then I'll round it up this way. In the resolution, as after the be it resolved, there's reference to bonds, but there's no, from section 1 to section 14, there's no revenue bonds stated. Now, this morning, I called up the director of the Louisiana State Bond Commission, Ms. Leila Foles, and I requested any documentation from the Plaquemines Port Harbor and Terminal District if any application to issue bonds have been made, and I was told that no. The last time a bond application was made by the Port Harbor and Terminal District, it was in 2013.
Is this a matter that was on the agenda for the port meeting?
This is a matter about community. I'd appreciate a little bit of deference as parish president. I know you weren't a supporter, but the point here is that simple communication would benefit everyone, and communication regarding these weighty matters of this much money would benefit everyone. So, for the purpose of future collaboration, I simply would request to be kept in the loop, especially if there's any large sums of money that are going to be discussed, be it in the levy district, be it in the Port Harbor and Terminal District, or any other district under the Plaquemines Parish consolidated government.
My only comment was going to be, if this was a matter for the port, I would just recommend that we take this up at the port meeting. That was the only comment that I was going to make. So.
Okay. Finally, I want to thank my staff for all the hard work that they do in trying to work for the common good of Plaquemines Parish. I also want to applaud the sheriff's office. They showed up at a OLPH gathering in Mass for peace and justice just on Tuesday, September 11th, in commemoration of 9/11, and also want to thank all of our veterans for their service, because we had a good showing of veterans there as well. So thank you for your service.
Mr. Juneau, you have a comment? No. Oh, I'm sorry. Mr. Badalamy?
Yes. I want to thank the President for his aggressiveness during this threat of hurricane that we have for Plaquemines. He was very strong in mandating the concern for the people on the lower West Bank and the East Bank of those people who lived in trailers to make sure that they have an avenue out of the trailers where they could go and be secured at another public facility. And he made that statement very clear that they was going to offer a place, and I want to thank him for that, making sure that was a place for the people, because that never had happened before. When we had other crises, now it did, and I thank him very much, he and his staff, for doing that. Also, I would like to thank the sheriff for what he did as well. He mobilized his department on the lower end as well as the East Bank as well as in Belle Chase for what could be coming. And if it didn't come, it was fine. But every area that was well represented, so I want to thank him for his efforts. And that's all I have, Madam Chairman.
Ms. Salvant?
Mr. President, I would just like to respectfully request that all future meetings or briefings that you have with Phillips 66, because it is that folder that you reference is in my district, that you include my office in those conversations?
Yes, I'm sorry that I did not know that you were not included. Sorry about that.
Thank you.
Mr. Bartholomew?
I received an email. I must have been invisible, man, at the regular meeting, but I wasn't there at your pre-meeting, because I was supposed to be there, but I didn't. I sent you an email, which I was, but I didn't. So somebody sent me an email. I told them I must have been invisible, but I wasn't there. That's all. I'm sorry.
Any other questions or comments from the table? The audience? Hearing none, let's move to item 7E, please.
Discussion on NFIP, Councilmember Roussel.
Councilmember Roussel?
Yes, this revolves around, and I believe we have somebody from FEMA here to address this issue. As you know, we adopted flood maps. One second, let me get to that item. On August 10th of 2017, we adopted ordinance number 17-98, which adopted the flood maps within the 100-year protection. And since that time, we've been making an effort to try to get the NFIP program renewed through Congress, as it's been 30, 60, 90-day extensions, but we have no real long-term bill. And in that process, we have had our floodplain manager write a letter to constituents who came to the office saying what their condition would be under the ordinance that we adopted. Evidently, he received a letter from FEMA that stated that he had to amend the letter because it wasn't to be used for insurance purposes. My issue with that is, first of all, he doesn't work for FEMA. And for constituents to go into his office and say that, the council, he tells them the council made a mistake by adopting the maps, is totally inappropriate in my mind. Because what I'm trying to do is, I'm trying to force the issue and get an act of Congress passed that gives my constituents relief because of the billion-dollar system that's been built around Plaquemines Parish in the Belle Chase area. Now, you may know if there's a rule or law or whatever it is that says that you, as FEMA, will not recognize partial adoptions. And it has to be the entire parish maps that have to be adopted before they will be recognized for insurance purposes. Now, to me, that is another instance where it makes no sense, because water doesn't follow political boundaries. It follows geographical boundaries. And that's what levees are for, to block the water. And for us to sit here since 2012 and not be able to get the benefit of that because we have not adopted the entire parish, to me, makes no sense. Now, the reason that we are not adopting the rest of the parish is because it's under the LAMP program being studied, trying to get the real elevations in those areas of the parish. So my issue is that he changed the letter when the letter was working in some instances. because some people did get relief by taking that letter to their insurance agent and making the case that they have adopted the flood maps. Now, FEMA might not like that idea, but my constituents like saving that money, $2,000, $3,000 a year. So for us to be in the middle here, I'm going to take the side of my constituents. And I want to be able to make sure that we resolve this. I've got letters from Senator Cassidy, Senator Kennedy. They all talk about this. Now Representative Abramson. And they assure me they're going to work to try to put this language in the new NFIP bill. So having said all of that, I'd like to hear your comments so I can understand better why we cannot move this forward.
So in the case of Plaquemines Parish...
Can you state your name?
Oh, I'm
please?
sorry. I'm Shona Gibson, FEMA Region 6, civil engineer. I oversee the risk map program for the state of Louisiana. So in the case of Plaquemines Parish, the current mapping update that we are working on with the parish is a first-time parish-wide map. And that was the intent way back when we initiated this program across the nation, is to bring all of the nation up to parish-wide maps. So once they are parish-wide, we can come in and adopt certain parts of the parish or update certain parts of the parish. So since Plaquemines Parish does not have a current parish-wide map, we have to get to that baseline first. And that's the mapping update that we're working on right now. There is no mechanism available right now that allows us to move forward just these panels that account for the area protected by the levee system, and move those forwards to an effective map. It's not that we have an issue that you adopted maps, or that Plaquemines Parish adopted the portions, those panels of the maps where there's a levee protection system for regulatory purposes. The effective map remains the regulatory mechanism as far as FEMA is concerned and as far as rating insurance is concerned. The insurance rating manual is very specific and very clear that all insurance rating is based on the map that is in effect, the effective map that is in effect on the date of application or the date of the renewal application. That's the law right now. I don't have a mechanism, FEMA does not have a mechanism to adopt these few panels where the levee system exists.
So following that logic, I don't know why Mr. Metcalf is writing a letter that has a disclaimer in it, when prior to him changing the letter, we have constituents and we have people in the audience that can testify that it was successful. Now, does that mean that FEMA's left hand doesn't know what right hand is doing? Because if we have constituents that are benefiting from the letter, I want to see the letter revert back to the original language so my constituents can go to his office and just state the facts. We didn't say in the letter that this was going to benefit you for insurance. All we said was that this council voted on and adopted these flood maps in the 100-year protection, and that under those maps, your house would be in whatever that zone is. Now, taking that forward, it's on them to see how they can be successful. And I agree, it was intentional on my part to try to stir this and move this forward to get some relief for my constituents. And in my years with dealing with FEMA, I've had some clashes, especially during Katrina and Rita. But even today, I don't understand why we cannot do it other than what you said, there's some rule or law that says that the entire parish has to be adopted. Is that what the law says? Because when I ask my senators, they haven't produced that to me yet.
We can produce a document and send a follow-up with a letter that explains the reasoning and the policy and the guidance that is behind that from headquarters.
Before we go any further, hold on. The policy or guidance or the law? What are you ruling on? Are you following a congressional act that says you can't adopt?
It is based on rules and laws in the Code of Federal Regulations, and it's a headquarters. It's at the headquarters level that pushes this down to us at the region.
So the congressional act that needs to be passed needs to be amended to get this fixed?
The Code of Federal Regulations.
So it's a code. It's the regulation that the bureaucracy has put in place. It's not something that Congress has passed.
And everything in the Code of Federal Regulation is passed by Congress, and it's a rule change, and a rule change takes a long time to change the Code of Federal Regulations.
Let me ask, without belaboring the point, what can you do, and I guess there's nothing you can do, to continue getting us relief, or what are the consequences of this parish employee going back to the original letter?
It's not informing the constituents of the facts, and quite frankly, the insurance agents who the comment that you said where FEMA, the left hand doesn't know what the right hand is doing, the fact that there were some insurance agents that may have rated this on the preliminary map, they were wrong and they were at fault. It has nothing to do with FEMA. That has everything to do with the insurance agent that rated that and not knowing the rules and the laws. And that's the issue there. That is not a FEMA issue. That's an issue of the insurance agent who did that not knowing the rules or the laws on how to rate the insurance.
And so what is wrong with that?
Nothing, except when it's found out during an audit and it comes back to the constituents and they're still in the same boat where they have to pay the correct insurance rating based on their base flood elevation on the effective map. Well, now we do have an office for flood insurance advocate where if you have issues related to flood insurance, you can go online. There's not a 1-800 number, but they have a direct line, Ask the Advocate. If you do a search for FEMA's Office for Flood Insurance Advocate, it'll take you to the homepage for them, and they have an Ask the Advocate button that you can send a question, or if you think you're being treated unfairly or someone thinks they're not being treated right as it relates to insurance, and bring the issue up with them, and they can come back and work with you all.
Well, Representative Scalise, Senator Kennedy, Senator Cassidy have all assured me that they're going to try to fix this if they ever get to the bill. And I understand the NFIP program has been extended to November the 30th. And I just want, for the sake of what's going on today in the conversation, for the parish employee to revert back to the original letter that only stated the facts that we adopted the flood maps and that the flood maps are what they are, and not to tell our constituents that this council made a mistake by adopting those flood maps.
And the fact remains that flood insurance is rated on the effective map, and that's a fact that that constituents need to know and understand. Homeowners need to know and understand that even though a preliminary map, a portion of a preliminary map was adopted by the council, it does not affect the insurance rating. It is based on the effective map.
But I don't believe that that letter has to state that. It states a simple fact of what we did. And if people are successful with it, some have not been. Some have said, my insurance agent says, no, it won't work. Some other people, and you say they're at fault at it, but I do know people that have saved thousands of dollars and even got refunds. So my point is that I need to find a way to help my constituents pay a reasonable flood rate, especially with the $1 billion investment that's been made around this polder. So how do we get to that common sense solution?
I think you are taking the right path by working with your congressman, because we at the region have to enforce the law, and as it's written, that is our job, is to enforce the law and to follow the law. And as a participating member of the NFIP community, of the NFIP program, you agreed to do the same, to stay in the NFIP program.
And so the point that I'm making, I guess, is that I want to see the letter go back to the original language.
Yes, I'm sorry.
My concern is, Councilman Roussel, if I keep sending, I have the policy that was, or the the guideline, the policy, the law that was sent to me by FEMA Region 6 by David Eagle, who was the gentleman that you and I met with in 2016. My concern is if I send the letter out without the language, and this is some sort of an oversight or mistake, what are the consequences? If this is a mistake that's going to be caught and things are going to have to be made up in arrears, so to speak, as far as the mistake and as far as what people have been paying for the discounted rate that the people have been paying for under the mistake, what are the consequences? Will they be asked to give back refunds? Will they be asked to make up the money that they paid in the arrears mistakenly? I don't know. And that's why, as floodplain manager, I am very reluctant, and after being instructed by FEMA Region 6 and given this policy, I don't know what the implications are. And
anything in the original letter that you issued was not factual?
Pardon?
Anything in the original letter that you issued to the homeowner, was anything in that letter not factual?
According to FEMA...
No, not according to FEMA. I'm asking you, anything in the letter that you wrote, was it not factual?
As an NFIP floodplain manager, like any other jurisdictional NFIP floodplain manager, I'm bound to work within the guidelines of the federal program. So my answer is, sir, it was not factual. According to the rules that I have to play by.
Tell me what was not factual in the letter.
The fact that it was a preliminary adoption and the determination could not be used for insurance rating purposes. That was the extra language that I was required to add to the letter at the instruction of FEMA Region 6. And you have to bear in mind, Councilman Russo, I know I work for the parish. My loyalty first is to this parish, but I also know that I'm operating under federal guidelines. The NFIP is not a local program. It's a federal program. It's the National Flood Insurance Program as offered to local jurisdictions and communities by the federal government. It's their rules. You can either play by their rules or you cannot play. That's my way of seeing it. So to answer your question, I don't feel that the letter in its original form was factual because it left out information by omission. And I'm only determining this and saying this because of what I have been told are the rules under the National Flood Insurance Program.
Well, you know how I feel about that.
Pardon?
I expressed it to you before. You know, for our constituents to go into your office and be told that the council made a mistake by adopting the flood maps is unacceptable to me.
And
my point?
What was your point, sir?
My point is for my constituent to go into your office and be told by you that this council made a mistake by adopting the flood maps is unacceptable to me.
Well, it's unacceptable to me, too. That's why I wouldn't say that.
Well, then I'll bring up someone that you told.
Sir, I think...
You want to go that route?
But, sir, I think, in all due respect, Councilman Roussel, I think if you lined up the large majority of NFIP floodplain managers for jurisdictions in the state of Louisiana, they would take the same approach to this that I have. This is not strange that I have taken this approach, unusual, unorthodox. I'm simply playing by the guidelines of that are required of us as a jurisdiction for our participation in the National Flood Insurance Program. I didn't make this up, sir. I wish personally that that area was adopted and the people in those X zones could realize savings. But apparently, through the program, the letter that was, the language that was omitted must be put in.
Well, like I said, I'm not going to beat this to death. I disagree with you. And I don't appreciate the comment that was made. And if you say you didn't make it, I will bring up a witness to say that you told her.
Okay, well then fine. Okay. I mean, and I will stick to my guns and tell you that I have told nobody that it's the fault of this council for this partial adoption. I may have told someone that the ordinance was adopted by this council. Well, I have not tried to assign blame to anyone.
Do you want to come up? Come on.
Before you leave the podium, ma'am, I just want to ask, you stated that there's a map, a parish-wide map that can be adopted or assigned, and then you can do partial adoptions, which would qualify.
Once this map that we're working on and the parish we're moving forward with getting some revised preliminary maps with the LAMP resolution on it. Once that's adopted, that's still another 12 months away.
That's what I was going to ask you.
12 to 18 months away.
How long has this been in the process?
Well, I've been here since 2009.
Yeah.
So, right, yes. And it went on hold at the request. The history is Congress, when the levies nationwide became such a big issue with the way that FEMA looked at levies that were not accredited or did not meet the accreditation standards, Congress sent out a letter to tell FEMA across the nation to cease and desist and develop a new levy mapping procedure. So we ceased and desist for almost 2 years while a new levy mapping procedure came into place. So all these levies that exist that do not meet accreditation standard, we can recognize some sort of risk reduction from those. So it went on hold for 2 years, went back into effect for 2 years, and then there's the contracting mechanisms that have to go in and procurement, and because we didn't have money just sitting there ready to go on.
A year to year and a half out of finalizing this parish-wide map.
Yes.
Let me ask you this. You agree that we operate under maps that are outdated?
Yeah.
Correct?
They are the effective maps, so we would not consider them outdated because they're effective. There's no way to invalidate them until these maps go effective.
And the maps that you put out in 2012 are the maps that we adopted?
The revised preliminary that was released in 2012, I believe. I don't know I have not seen the wording of the ordinance, so I don't know exactly which ones you adopted.
I can show you we adopted the 2012 maps.
Okay.
So that's 6 years ago.
But they're not official.
And so we are still not making any progress towards realizing just those maps because we have to do the entire parish.
Yes, sir.
And that's because it's a political subdivision that you use as a boundary.
Parish, we use as a boundary, the parish boundary.
Okay, I'll rephrase it. You use the political parish boundary.
Yes.
As the boundary. Now,
under these maps, on our new process, we look at watersheds.
So you're saying we're ahead of our time looking at watersheds by adopting the maps in this watershed?
Well, this watershed, a Huck 8 watershed, is much larger than Plaquemines Parish.
All right, well, let me ask it this way then. The polder that we're sitting in within the billion-dollar project, does it make sense to separate that and look at it as a different entity?
Not under the guidelines and policy of FEMA the way it's written right now. I don't have a mechanism. We've looked at it very in detailed, and there is not a way to do it. We don't have a mechanism to do it.
Is it because of the language that's in?
It's a variety of issues. It's the old maps are under. It's a variety of issues.
But I mean, so I must just be imagining this, but when the federal government came in and built the 100-year HISTRA system, the surrounding parishes already had their relief. They've already adopted the maps, and they're already paying the $240 or the $450 or whatever the price is for maps because FEMA's now recognized them. But because this section here is part of a larger parish political boundary, it doesn't get that benefit.
That and the timing of LAMP. Not every parish under HISDRS has gone adopted. There's still two others that have not been adopted. 3 others, actually. I still have 3 other parishes that are part of HISDRS that are doing LAMP and under the same situation.
Well, I'm not going to belabor it anymore. I'm just very disappointed that we can't move forward with saving people thousands of dollars when the whole effort is to make flood insurance affordable so we have more people participate. But we have instances, and this lady can tell you, of people that just can't afford it, so they do without it. And that has nothing to help us with trying to get the revenue up in the FEMA pool of funding to pay off the claims. So I just couldn't sit by and watch it continue to go nowhere. And I'm going to have to sit here for another year and a half and watch it go nowhere unless the Congress inserts the language in the bill in the end of November to get it done the way that I think it needs to be done. So I'm going to continue my effort, and I hope that, I'm not sure what he's going to do or what he's going to do about the letter, but I would encourage the letter to go back to the original language, because there was nothing false about the letter. It just stated the facts that we adopted flood maps. So there's nothing erroneous about it. Anyway.
It gives a false sense of hope to folks who think they will get a reduced rate, and that is not the case.
However, it has been the case. I can tell you that there are people that have been benefiting from it. And, you know, I'll give up here and let it go. I don't know if did you want to say something, Mr. LaHaye?
Thank you.
Wait, don't leave because someone may have questions for you. Can you just hang tight? Yes, ma'am.
Hi, my name is Nancy LaHaye. I live in District 2, north of the tunnel. In our area, there are several people that have benefited from this letter, taken it to the insurance company, who have presented it to FEMA, and who have definitely benefited with lower premiums. Several of the people there's several elderly ladies and gentlemen, one of whom is a person that just got their premium for $1,600, increasing instead of decreasing. 91 years old, fixed income. I know of two other ladies, one $1,800, one $1,400. Now we're talking about small homes that have never ever flooded. And I can't quite understand why this process is taking so long, knowing that this is happening. I was told back right after Katrina, all of us went to a meeting at the auditorium. a FEMA gentleman pulled up, told me exactly what my premiums were going to be, as well as the other people. One of the other couples was there at the same time. They were waiting in line. You had to pick a number and be called. I was told my premium would be this and that I would be in this zone. Then when the premium started, that never happened. Didn't happen. I don't understand why, I'm not really here screaming about my premiums because they weren't 14, 16, 18. I'm 2.5 blocks away from a 91-year-old lady who has a $1,600 premium, and I have a $400 premium. What? That's a fact. I want to talk to you. That's what I'm telling you. It's all over the place. And another elderly lady called me numerous times. $1,800. Same area, maybe 3 blocks. You live what? 2 blocks from me? 3? Yeah. So it's all over the place in this one little area north of the tunnel that no one ever. Have you ever had water in your house? Neither has anybody else.
Been there 52 years.
Yeah. Okay. I've worked the heroes. My house dates back 78 years. No, it's a 100-year-old house, but FEMA in my flood, there's no evidence ever flooded in 78 years. So why are these elderly people, fixed incomes, sell their house or pay their flood insurance when they have never flooded? And there's something wrong with this. I don't know how you fix it. I don't know why it takes, we're 10 years after, 11 years after Katrina, and we're still asking for relief for these people. I don't understand it. Shame on the federal government if they can't move quicker than that, and our legislators in Washington, D.C., that they can't move quicker. If all of this is fact, then I don't understand why nothing can get done for these people. And that's all I have to say.
Mr. President?
Yes, Ms. Gibson, if you would, please. Has FEMA hired a third-party contractor to review our LAMP application?
Our contractors are working on the LAMP. I mean, we hire contractors to actually do the analysis and that sort of thing. So yes, but we don't have another contract to review our contractors' work. But we do have independent quality review built into that, where there's an independent contract that will review our contractors' work. If that makes sense.
Okay, I guess when I was speaking with Ms. Kennedy of HNTB, who's handling this for the parish, the LAMP.
I know where the question's coming from. Okay.
Yeah.
So right now, we do have, the parish has decided to move forward with the maps, and we do have a contractor lined up to finish the maps. The contractor has submitted a scope clarification. Unfortunately, that scope clarification was on the docket with 2 other projects, so one of the other projects had questions, so it's been held up. I have to get an update on where we're at on that. But I was hoping to come with a schedule today, but I was not able to. But yes, we do have someone working on it. Yes.
If you would please, I'll give him my information. If you could please let Mr. Metcalf or I know as to who that contractor would be. Mm-hmm. And also please give my regards to Director Robinson and please tell them that we're requesting, as soon as the third-party contractor gets on the job, we greatly appreciate their approval.
The contractor is Compass. It is so Compass is the contractor. Yes.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions or comments? Jane?
Yeah, I think it might be important to note that this is a complicated federalism issue, and I think Councilman Roussel's point, if I may interpret it, sir, is that this body here, the council, is the one who makes the determination as to which maps are going to be approved ultimately. And there is a bit of circular logic in this, in that you have to make a map in order to change a map, and it kind of goes back and forth. The congressional delegation has pretty much made it clear that the new rules, the new regulations are designed to help people. It's not designed to hurt people. Okay, and yet with our LAMP process thus far, the reason we're having to delay the LAMP process is because when FEMA did the initial determination on the low end of the parish, where people are paying exorbitant amounts of money for flood insurance, can't even afford it, half of them are without it because they can't afford it, they came back and said if you end the levy, it's worse than being outside the levy, which was an absurdity, an absolute absurdity, and goes against the very purpose that Congress passed the law. So, Congressman Roussel, you're absolutely right to push this.
Roussel.
Oh, Congressman. That was a mistake. I'm thinking about the Congressman Scalise now. Yeah. Anyway, pardon me, y'all. But anyway, Mr. Metcalf, in fairness to him, he's being whipsawed between a federal agency that's saying one thing based upon its internal regulations, which are not necessarily the same weight as law, and a law passed by this body for whom he works. Now, I know he's worried about personal liability coming on him if he sends that letter out. So what I think I would like to know from Ms. Shona is, do the regulations carry personal penalties for someone like Mr. Metcalf if he were to send a letter out, or for the parish itself?
And if I could just say quickly, I'm not going to tell you that that's never a concern of a floodplain manager or a building official, but my first concern is to the residents, constituents of this parish. I want to make sure that nothing comes back if I leave out or put in incorrectly and not accordingly to NFIP guidelines, that it's nothing that will come back to hurt anybody later. That's my main
Understood, and I'm not putting any, I'm agreeing with you, is what I'm saying, because our charter holds us personally responsible for these kind of obligations if we incur them. And so I understand where you're coming from. I'm just saying it's a federalism issue. The parish council has spoken, and we have a bureaucratic agency saying, well, you can't do that. So the question is there preemptory law? If there's no preemptory law, then the council should be the determining factor, at least vis-a-vis you, unless there's some sort of law that's going to say you and or the parish is going to be penalized directly for not including that, or for including that language in the letter, or not including the language.
Can you elaborate?
I'm trying, I don't understand. So you're asking if the law specifically states that he can be personal liable.
It's fighting what Congress wants y'all to do. The bureaucrats and the scientific community is pushing back against the will of Congress, is what I'm saying. And Mr. Metcalf just happens to be caught in the middle.
Okay. You have a comment, sir?
Good, thank you. My name is Rudy Sampe. I live at 108 Shirley Street. That's north of the tunnel. And my house was built in 1975. And not a drop of water is ever in my house. Now this year, well, starting after Katrina, my flood insurance payment started at $1,400 and gradually progressed until this year it went to $2,292. And I said, that's enough. And I canceled the damn thing. That's what I'm going to say.
Wish I could do the same, sir. Okay, Mr. Roussel.
Let me thank you for coming and hearing us. You can understand that our frustration is great because of testimony like you just heard from Mr. Sampe. And we can multiply that many, many times. And I don't know what you can do, but I'm hoping that we can find some solution to this because the bills keep going up and the situation is not improving, knowing that it does not make any common sense. There's no common sense applied to this, knowing that with the flip of the switch, that his premium will go back to $450 a year. We know that because of the maps that we've adopted. And we're sitting here waiting on relief. But thank you for coming down, and don't take any of this, to heart.
It's my pleasure. I love Louisiana, and I love working for Louisiana. So, and I understand people's frustrations very much so. So I don't take it personally, I promise.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Let's revert back to the agenda, please. Item 2.
Bids and advertisements. Number 1, a resolution authorizing the acceptance of bids for furnishing one or more propellers for a period of 1 year for use by the Ferry Department.
I'll offer. Can I get a second? Seconded by Mr. Juneau. Ms. Stanford? You want to?
Hi, I'm Brenda Stanford, Plaquemines Parish Purchasing Agent. I have a resolution that was advertised on September 4th for one or more propellers for a period of 1 year for use by the Ferry Department. Jefferson Propeller of Harvey was the only vendor to bid. Mr. Joey Horton, Supervisor of the Ferry Department, recommends the acceptance of the only bid of Jefferson Parish Propeller Repairs and Sales.
Thank you, ma'am. Question, Mr. Roussel?
No. I'll offer.
We did already.
Okay. I'll call a question.
Any questions or comments from the table, the audience? Hearing none, the machine is open. Resolution is adopted 8-0. Next item, please.
Thank you. Beer and liquor licenses.
Mr. Bartholomew? Mr. Lapine? Mr. Juneau? I have one, a special event application for the Plaquemines Parish Fair and Orange Festival. Event starting date was set up 11/26/18, 8 a.m. Event ending date where they'll be tearing down is 12/4. The actual festival dates are November 30th, December 1st, and December 2nd to be held at Fort Jackson, Buras, Louisiana. Mr. Roussel, none? Mr. Burt? Mr. Salvant? Mr. Edgecombe, no? None. I'll offer this one special event. Seconded by Mr. Edgecombe. Any questions or comments? Hearing none, the machine is open. Permit passes 7-0. Mr. Roussel's away from the table. Can we please take 4A1 through 4 in globo if there are no objections? Okay.
4A1. High Point Gas Transmission, application number 18-442, dated June 15, 2018. Remove timber mats and replace with concrete mats over the Mississippi River levee at 2 sites to cover 3 12-inch pipelines and 1 26-inch pipeline. East Point of LaHash area, Councilmember Bartholomew. Number 2, Chevron Ornite, application number 2018-453, dated June 20, 2018. Excavate for demolition of an existing ring wall at tank 7404 and replace with a new ring wall. Chevron Ornite Plant, Belle Chase, Councilmember Burt. Number 3, Phillips 66 Alliance Refinery, application number 2018-559, dated August 2, 2018. Install 12-inch by 110-foot 61 12-inch by 120-foot steel pipe piles and associated foundation for support of industrial equipment, Alliance Refinery, Councilmember Trufant Salvant. And number 4, Eustace Engineering, LLC, application number 2018-629, dated August 31st, 2018. Drill 6 soil borings and perform 7 cone penetration tests for proposed bulkheads, Venice Port Complex, Venice. Councilmember Williams.
I'll offer. Can I get a second? Seconded by Ms. Salvant. Any questions or comments on any of the permits? Hearing none, the machine is open. Let the record reflect the legislation's permits passed 8-0. Councilmember Black has arrived. Thank you for joining us. 4B, please.
Dorsey Development, Dollar General for a new commercial business in an A2 zoning district, 13864 Highway 23, Belle Chase, Louisiana. Councilmember Edgecombe.
Councilmember Edgecombe.
Offer that for a second.
Councilmember Edgecombe offers, seconded by Ms. Salvant.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I know at the last meeting there was some opposition, actually still is some opposition about this particular permit. I did have a meeting last night, a town meeting in Jesuit Bend. People were there, and there was some discussion as far as the adjacent property owners, what their request was, and we actually got that in black and white with an affidavit signature that it will be performed that way, of course, if it passes. Pretty much it, Mr. Chair.
Any questions or comments from the people regarding this? From the audience? Questions or comments? State your name for the record, please, sir, and your address.
Name's Gary Hess. They're wanting to build this directly across.
Which address, please?
13889 Highway 23. Yeah, the first meeting was last night. Imagine that. On this proposed project. And chest piles were driven, which I'm sure Jeff can tell you when, without a permit. All of this tells me that stuff's maybe going on that shouldn't be going on. Opposition-wise, yeah, I have approximately 23 signatures on the letters that were sent out that oppose it. They were talking about concessions last night, picking up a fence, digging a ditch. People still oppose it. That's just a way of trying to get it in. I don't understand how the parish can just go drive pilings, or a proposed developer, drive pilings without having a community meeting, a sign with a proposal. It seems like it's all backdoor to me. So I'm trying to grasp this, yet this is right across from my house. Nothing was told, nothing was said until I saw the test piles. That's wrong. I don't understand how the council can allow you to go ahead and build it without telling anybody else about it. Can someone answer that?
That would be Mr. Metcalf, I would assume, because they issued the permits as far as test piles and things of that nature.
No, just how you can go and build it without having, in a community, without having a community meeting. From what I understand, we pay taxes. It pays y'all. Y'all supposed to be working for us. Don't appear that way. That's my question. It seems like it should go through, instead of the backwards way, you put a sign up, proposed building site, community meeting at such and such date, allow all the people to participate, and go from there. Not run out and drive piling.
Mr. Edgecombe, I'm going to come back to you, Mr. Russo.
And now we're going to build a commercial building in an A2 zone.
Mr. Gary, as far as my appreciation on the process that was the way it was handled by the Planning and Zoning Office was done properly, where this building and the parking entrance faces Highway 23, so therefore there's not a zoning change needed.
A2 and commercial, there's not a problem. Why don't we just do commercial then? Because I have enough frontage on mine, then I can try to build something. And I'm going to drive the pilings without calling y'all. Because apparently we can do that now. Apparently we can do the permit without permits. That's what this is telling me. Yep, that's okay.
I just followed the guidelines from Amitra's office.
Jeff, honestly, you've been politicking up here for the votes. I understand that. I don't blame Mr. Circovich for trying to get that piece of property, something done with it. I don't blame him. I don't get the way it's being done.
Yes, sir.
That's my problem. And we're going to continue doing this throughout the parish.
Mr.
You're telling me I can go get a piece of property and start driving pilings, doing whatever I want. That's what you're telling me.
Let me address the situation. When the subdivision came up, you know, I voted for the subdivision. But in that discussion, I had specifically asked if we were going to go through the zoning process so the neighbors would be part of it. And I was led to believe that we would. And I've expressed that to everybody in the room. Those in the room might have remembered that. And so I thought we were going to go through a full-blown zoning process. Now, they did find a way, evidently. Mr. Edgecombe alluded to Ms. Amitra saying that we don't have to go through that process. I disagree with that. I believe that the public should have a public zoning hearing to rezone the property for commercial. And even further along than that, I believe that the Jesuit Bend community needs to come together in that area and decide what they want the community to look like. Because we voted down a venue next to Mr. Frelish's house recently because we didn't want to do spot zoning. We didn't want to have a venue in the community that had commercial implications. So I can tell you that I've been misled to the point to where I thought we were going to have a zoning hearing and a zoning process. So I don't know anybody in here remembers that, but I do. And that was my condition of my vote, to vote on the subdivision, to subdivide the lot. So I sympathize with your situation, and I'm not sure where it's gone.
For me either, but I do realize now that I can go buy land and build whatever I want. And I don't have to have a permit.
Well, addressing the permit, do they need a permit for the test piles?
There's been no permits issued. Permits will not be approved and issued until
the question is, do they need a permit for test piles?
Do they
Yes,
need a permit
sir.
for test
The
piles?
question is,
depends on where the test piles are.
They're on the property.
In this case, I would say yes. They will probably need a construction permit.
And did they get one?
No, they did. Well, I don't know. I'd have to check on that. This is handled by planning and zoning, sir. I'll have to check on it for you.
You just said no permits were issued.
No building permits. Permits that I issue to construct the building are contingent upon the approval of this council today. No building permits have been issued.
This is my biggest issue, is the way that it's done. It's not done right. Not one of y'all would appreciate it in front of your house, or the way that it's being done. And I think you're putting out the wrong message to the whole parish. Because I just realized right now that I can build whatever I want in front of my house. I don't need a permit. That's what you're telling me.
I know you're smiling back there, but are y'all willing to go through the zoning process?
Sir, I'll come up after you.
Okay.
This meeting last night involved about 15 people. I apologize right now. Ms. LaFrance has the list that's against it, which included all of Jeff's letters that oppose it. She's at work. You sent out certified letters, didn't you? How many roughly did you send? 15? Plan? Okay, the planning. Hell, they're telling me there's a turn down there by the store down there by BP. I hadn't found it yet. I don't get it. I'd appreciate some insight, though.
Ryan Hess, here to support my dad and also ask the council a question. And to remove a little of emotion, because that is a place he's retiring to. He decided to retire to because it was owned agriculture and he wants to get away from the hustle and bustle. And all of a sudden there's a commercial development going up right across the door. So I laughingly joked with him and I told him I was going to take a picture of the Dollar General and hang it up on the outside of the door. That way he could get used to it. It's not very funny for him, though. Him or my mother. My question is this. What is the purpose of this store? You know, because I've heard, excuse me, Mr. Sirkovich, I completely understand your purpose, but the purpose for the parish. What's it going to do for the parish? And I understand there's some councilmen leaving. Is this going to be a part of your legacy that, hey, brought a Dollar General in? Because we have one. There's like similar stores within the parish. So what is its purpose? That's my that's my question to the councilman. Mr. Edgecombe? Or is that in your district there? Or?
Yes, sir.
What's the purpose of it?
Our purpose is to help the community and not have to go so far for stuff they need, sir.
Charlie Burt?
I would say the same thing. I think it's you know, as most of my residents have said, it's going to be a convenience for those. The residents of Jesuit Bend can shop locally without having to travel to Upper Bellchase or Gretna or Terrytown. And I'm supporting some of the residents in my district that would like to see it.
Those residents made that decision to move into South Plaquemines Parish, Jesuit Bend, prior to any Dollar General. I take those answers and I really disregard them completely, 100%. I think it's a nice, easy answer, is what it is. Nice and easy. But if you were looking at bringing business, you know, I was waiting to hear some tax revenue. We're going to generate more tax dollars in the parish. Well, that's completely laughable, because it's 6 for one way, half a dozen another. You know, and somebody made the comment about you go to the pink store, Little Lee's, and buy a gallon of milk, and the price is astronomical. Yeah, the price of logistics. The logistics will still be involved with getting items down there as well. The price will be a little bit cheaper than the dollar store, but what are we talking about? $40 a year in milk? Stop making the easy decisions. Make the right ones. Anybody can do easy.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Juneau, you have a comment?
Yes, I was against it because it says agriculture, and people move down there for agriculture. And that's why we went against the other building, because people wanted to live in a quiet area. And you build over there to have a quiet area for your grandkids and for everyone else to come visit you. And I don't think it should be there because that's agriculture. Thank you.
Ms. Alvant?
Yes. I'm wondering why Mr. Hess didn't solicit my comment of the three council members that's leaving. But I would be first to tell, if he have any history in the legacy that I intend to leave here at this council, is that I've been anti-environmental businesses coming into this parish. I fought against a methanol plant. I fought against a RAM terminal, so I can understand Gary Hess's position. I truly understand your position, sir. I agree with Mr. Roussel that I was under the impression that this would go before the zoning board and would go through the process. I too have a problem with the process. Okay? But don't push my button, sir. Don't push my button, because I have been an advocate against business coming in and being done the proper way. But it all comes down to the 5 votes. So I'm sure you're aware of that. Okay? But don't lump me in with anyone else. By no means. I'm an independent thinker, and I vote independently. And I agree with Gary's position that he should have been included into the process. He lived directly across, but my first inclination was this. I lived on the southern end of the mid-southern end of the parish, and I would have welcomed it, and my vote up front would have been to support this, because now I have to drive to Belchase to the nearest dollar store. But everybody in Belchase can walk out your door 10 minutes away or 5 minutes away. But the problem is, it's the process. That's what Mr. Hess stated earlier. He has problem with the process. So I think we need to go back to the beginning and deal with the process. But by no means lump me in. If you have any history of Audrey voting process in which she stands as an individual councilman, I'm an independent thinker. Thank you.
Mr. Burt, you have something else? No. Mr. Bartholomew? Oh.
Yes.
Sorry. Go ahead.
I'm ready? All right, thank you. Does this require a zoning change? That's the question at hand.
Can you please explain the process, ma'am?
I'm sorry, I was preparing for a development board meeting, that's why I wasn't here. At an earlier meeting, when the subdivision was getting ready to be passed, the question was asked to me, does this have to have a map change? I explained that there's 2 ways to do this, that the developer can apply for a map change to go from an A2 to C2, which is general commercial. Or in the A2 zoning district, there is a provision that says that anything that fronts a parish or state maintained highway can be approved for commercial use as long as there are 15 notification days to the surrounding property owners. Every surrounding property owner has been notified.
So they want, in regards to the question about the test piles, there was not a requirement for a permit to?
The developer was notified. I did get a call complaint saying that that is not me. I do not know if they applied for it or not. He's here to speak on it.
Wait a minute. A question.
Okay.
So to answer your question, they do not technically need a map change. They are doing the provision under the A2, which can have council approval for a commercial use in an A2 as long as 15 notification days has been given to the surrounding property owners.
What are the normal procedures for that? That's normal?
Yes. Okay. This has been done several times.
Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Yes, sir. Hi, I'm Ed Voltalina with Dorsey Development Companies. We're the developer for the project. To answer the question about the test piles, when we ordered the test piles, we were under the understanding that our the company doing the test piles would get the permit. After the fact, we're informed that they did not. We immediately went and applied and paid the fees and got in for the permit. We were outside of the 1,500-foot part from the Corps CPRA, their jurisdictional area. It's 1,500 feet. We are outside of that. They have given no letters of no interest on the for this project. We feel the way we went through this process, we thought it would be better to do the ask the council for permission rather than go through the zoning change, because when you do a zoning change, if this goes away, anything else can go there. But if for some reason if the Dollar General were to go away, anyone who wanted to still put another commercial activity would have to come back to the council to approve that. We thought that was better than asking for a zoning change, that if the property was rezoned, anything that's allowed in that zoning could go there if this went away. So that's a process we thought it would be better for the neighborhoods. At the last council meeting, we met with 4 people who were there in opposition, spoke with them outside. They had said they were going to organize a meeting. We agreed to go to the meeting. Nothing happened until the councilman this week set up the meeting last night. I wasn't contacted by any of them. I was told they would call me, email, whatever. They had all our information to talk about it. Not a word until the councilman set up the meeting for last night. We went there. The people who were there, we discussed it. The property is not going to be directly abutting the residential. We have 70 feet from our property line to the rear of their properties. That will be retained by Mr. Serkovich for access to his rear property in the rear. At the same time, we agreed to put landscaping in the front to help soften anything Mr. Hess may see. We agreed to put an 8-foot fence along the property line facing the residential area to the south and also to the western side of our property. An 8-foot wooden fence. We agreed to put some hedges on the south side of that fence where the residents would be looking at the hedges rather than the fence. We put our delivery area to the north, so it would be further away from the residential area. So we agree that we can't make everyone happy. We've tried to go in with as much as we could do up front to satisfy any concerns that may come up by doing this. We're just trying to follow your ordinances the way they're written. I'm sorry, and I'll answer any questions if you have any.
Any questions from anyone? Okay.
Thank you.
Mr. Hess, I'm sorry, with all due respect, the rules are you can only approach the podium to speak on the item one time. Sorry.
Can't change them? I mean, do I need a permit?
Any other questions or comments from the audience? State your name, please, and address.
Ricky Backnell. How y'all doing today? It's nice to be here. I was in the meeting last night when there were some people right up against the side, on the south side of the Ricard Lane, and Mr. Hess, which is right across there, the street, and I can appreciate their concerns. But in the meeting, this gentleman that represents the Dollar General and Mr. Serkovich has made it quite clear that they're going to go up and above and please all of our neighbors that have those concerns. I am 56 years old. My family has lived there like 170 years. I'm here today only one voice and one man, but rest assured, my voice should carry through our neighborhood and our community. We want this Dollar General. This Dollar General has been really, it will be a godsend to us that our elderly people won't have to go up to Belle Chase. It is a convenience thing. I really do think that there will be one set price, just like it is there through the state of Louisiana, which is a very reasonable price. So please, the people that's got to make this decision, that's on the fence and thinking, oh, well, maybe it wasn't done quite right. Well, maybe it wasn't up in the beginning, but I have full confidence in Mr. Circovich and this gentleman that they're going to do whatever it takes, and they've already said they would put it in writing, that they are going to please the adjoining neighbors that's faced with this store. But the community, Becknellville, Rushville, Ironton, our Jesuit Bend people is going to be easily serviced there from this store. So I'm asking you, Mr. Irv, that you had said that you're not going to vote for this. Hopefully this changes your mind. They're my Uncle Bob and all of them. They're elderly people. They don't want to go up to Belle Chase. This is going to be a convenience thing for our community after all these years. So please consider that. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Any other questions or comments? Hearing none, the machine is open for vote. Legislation passes with 7 yeses, 1 no vote from Mr. Roussel, and an abstention from Mr. Juneau. Can we please take for C, D, E, and F in global?
C, Ducks Fireworks, Donald Durr Fireworks, Stand Renewal 9590, Highway 23, Belle Chase, Louisiana, Councilmember Juneau. D, Ducks Fireworks, Donald Durr Fireworks, Stand Renewal 9127, Highway 23, Belle Chase, Louisiana, Councilmember Juneau. Ducks Fireworks, Donald Durr Fireworks, Stand Renewal 7010, Highway 23, Belle Chase, Louisiana, Councilmember Juneau. F, Richard Freeman Temporary Camper Trailer in a Floodplain Zoning District 126B, West Bayou Lane, Lake Hermitage, Councilmember Trufant Salvant.
You offer, Mr. Juneau? No. Mr. Juneau offers. Ms. Salvant seconds. Is there any questions or comments on these permits? Hearing none, the machine is open. Permits are approved 9-0. Next item, please.
Number 5, introduction of ordinances and resolutions.
Mr. Bartholomew? Mr. Black?
Yes, ma'am. I have 2. An ordinance authorizing Parish President Amos Cormier III to negotiate and enter into a cooperative endeavor agreement with Plaquemines Parish School Board for the reciprocal leasing of certain property for the benefit of both political subdivisions and their citizens, to enter into and execute lease agreements necessary thereto, and otherwise to provide with respect thereto. A resolution granting conditional approval for a plan of subdivision of lots C3, D1, and E, Hero Lands Division, Belle Chase, into lots 1 through 20, Planters Estates, Plaquemines Parish, Louisiana, as shown on map of subdivision by Dufran Surveying and Engineering, Inc., registered land surveyor dated August 12, 2016, without cost to the Plaquemines Parish government or the Parish of Plaquemines. That's all I have.
Mr. Lepine?
Owen?
Yes.
I have 2. An ordinance to amend the 2018 Firefighters Fund operating expenditure budget, firefighting Belle Chase Department, otherwise to provide with respect thereto. An ordinance to amend the 2018 firefighting operating expenditure budget, firefighting departments, and ambulance department, and otherwise to provide with respect thereto.
Mr. Juneau?
I have one. A resolution granting conditional approval for a plan of subdivision of Rennie S. Burris, map of re-subdivision of Lot 5Y1 into lots 51A, 51B, 51C, 51D, and 51E. Belshaz Section D, Belshaz, Plaquemines Parish. As shown on map of re-subdivision by Brott Hammond and Associates, certified by Hugh McCurdy III, PLS, dated June 20th, 2018, without cost to Plaquemines Parish government or the parish of Plaquemines.
I have two. A resolution adopting a Federal Transportation Administration approved substance abuse management policy and drug-free workplace for ferry department personnel and otherwise to provide with respect thereto. A resolution authorizing the parish president to enter any and all state entity agreements between Plaquemines Parish government and the Louisiana Department of Transportation and Development and/or Federal Highway Administration, which are or will be necessary to secure state and federal funding for ongoing transportation-related projects, and otherwise to do all things necessary and proper to sign, perfect, perform, and enforce those agreements. Mr. Roussel?
Before I introduce this, I heard Mr. Lepine's introduction. Did you introduce something for purchasing ambulances? I think it's fine. Okay, I'll introduce this. In order to amend the 2018 Firefighting Fund operating expenditure budget, ambulance department, otherwise to provide with respect thereto, and a resolution to approve cooperative endeavor agreement, Louisiana government number 2000357868, with the State of Louisiana Department of Natural Resources for the Plaquemines Parish Local Coastal Program implementation, to authorize the execution of said agreement by the parish president, otherwise to provide with respect thereto. That's all I have.
Mr. Burt?
I have one. An ordinance approving a plan of re-subdivision of property of lots 19 through 41, Idlewild Estates, Plaquemines Parish, Louisiana, into lots 19A, 19B, 20A, 20B, 21A, 22A, 22B, 23A, 24A, all the way down to 41B. I'm not reading all those. Idlewild Estates, Plaquemines Parish, Louisiana, as shown on the plans and plat of survey by Dufresne Surveying and Engineering, dated December 15, 2017. The owner having fulfilled all the requirements of the subdivision and re-subdivision ordinance of the parish of Plaquemines without cost to the Plaquemines Parish government or the parish of Plaquemines, and otherwise to provide with respect thereto. That's all.
Salvant?
Yes, I have three. A resolution approving the issuance of 2-year extension to Plaquemines Dirt and Clay Company, LLC, for the excavation of a bore pit on property located in floodplain zoning district at 22222 Highway 23, Point Celeste, Louisiana, all in accordance with application number 2013-4372 dated September 6, 2015. An ordinance by the Plaquemines Parish Council as on behalf of the Burris Levee District to appropriate a temporary work easement in a certain portion of land in Plaquemines Parish, Louisiana, to construct the New Orleans to Venice levee, West Bank Hurricane Protection Levee, project number -10, Happy Jack to Narren, Plaquemines Parish, Louisiana, for levee, flood wall, drainage, flood, access, and hurricane protection purpose, and otherwise to provide with respect thereto. An ordinance to amend the recreation director pay to place in alignment with other directors. That's it.
Ms. Edgecombe?
Ma'am.
An ordinance to amend the 2018 General Fund operating expenditure budget, District Attorney General Department, and otherwise to provide with respect thereto. An ordinance authorizing and directing the Plaquemines Parish President to expend funds for the renovation of DA Building 201 at the Consolidated Government Complex, being a part of Plaquemines Parish Project number 16-02-01, with said funds being in the amount of $2,437,737.09 from the Community Development Block Grant, with the CDBG funds being part of project number ILTR 00223, and further to execute the construction contract with CDW Services LLC that was authorized by Pan American Engineers LLC on January 5, 2017, and ordered executed by Judge Barbera on March 20, 2017, and all other acts necessary to complete this project.
Okay. Next item, please.
E, an ordinance to amend the 5-year capital improvements plan by appropriating $38,138 to the feasibility study Baptiste Colette deepening project and otherwise to provide with respect thereto.
This, I'll offer this. Can I get a second? Seconded by Mr. Roussel. This was handed to me by the administration. It's just appropriating the $38,138 out of funding that we received from the Department of Transportation and Development into the feasibility study for the Baptiste Colette deepening project. Any questions or comments from the table? Mr. Roussel.
Yes. For the purposes of discussion, I thought this feasibility study was completed. Is this outstanding bills?
I think it's reimbursable from my understanding.
That's not the question.
That was my question to Mr. Vince right before the meeting.
Yes, sir. Councilman Roussel, the contract was for $23,960. This was to finalize comment and also finalizing the study on the project. Now, this is all reimbursable from DOTD. As a matter of fact, we've already been reimbursed. I have the checks here.
So this is just
copies.
paperwork that's already been completed?
Yes, this is already finished. The project's done.
Okay.
That was the question.
That's what we need to say.
All right. Thank you.
Questions or comments? Hearing none, the machine is open.
Mr. Black, Mr. Bartholomew.
Y'all voting down there?
I did. We did. Who said we did?
Ms. Barbara. Legislation passes 9-0. Next item, please.
A resolution to authorize the council, special counsel to take such actions that are necessary to compel the parish president to adhere to the consent judgment issued in the matter of Plaquemines Parish Council versus Plaquemines Parish President Amos Cormier III, docket number 64047, Division A, 25th Judicial District Court, Parish of Plaquemines, State of Louisiana, including but not limited to a motion for contempt and to provide for related matters.
Councilmember Black.
Offer.
Councilmember Black offers. Is there a second? Seconded by Councilmember Lapine. Mr. Black.
Yeah, I think this is essential to do. Well, really, I don't even know if we need to do it, but I think it's essential that the council supports it. The administration has filed a motion to extend time, and I think that if this is filed by all council, hopefully the judge will hear both within the same time frame and just rule on it and get it over with. As you know, in the consent judgment, it doesn't just list the administration, it also lists recreation, it lists the water department, it lists civil service, and none of those have moved.
Okay, any questions or comments?
I got one.
Go ahead, Mr. Barbier, or you want to
I'll wait for Mr. Henry if he wants.
Oh, I just wanted to know, since this on the 25th judicial docket, there's a date that was appointed to it?
Yeah, Mr. Henry, what they did, this is kind of what happened. We filed a mandamus. The judge ruled in our favor that we have the authority, and the president and the administration's legal team took a writ, Fourth Circuit. They brought it back to the 25th. They took another writ to the Supreme Court. They denied to hear the writ. So the ruling from the 25th stands. After that, we had another ordinance, another resolution that we passed in which our attorney and the parish attorney's office signed a consent judgment, which basically which means both parties agree. In that consent judgment, they had a time of August 30th
to August 31st to be able to go ahead and complete the move. The judge signed that order. At that point, it's a court order that both parties agreed to it. They decided, hey, that we're not going to adhere to it, and this is where we're at. And it's been, quite a long time since that was signed, and they never decided to move. So, the council's just protecting its rights and what we have voted on over a year and a half ago, over and over and over again. So it's as simple as that. They've asking for more time. I don't believe that they need more time. I believe that they're just dragging their feet, and it's a slap in the face to the council's authority.
Just want to give the people some insight.
Yeah, that's it.
Thank you.
Mr. Henry, if you'd like to hear this, you might want to stay close. But let me tell you what really happened. First off, the judge never ruled anything in this. All he ever did was rule on a procedural capacity issue about whether this body could file a suit in its own name. He never ruled on the mandamus, so that's an absolute misstatement. Now, Councilman Black's not a lawyer, so I'll give him a pass on that. But the fact of the matter is the judge has never issued a ruling, never had a hearing, and never said a word about whether the mandamus has any merit at all. In a spirit to actually follow what the council had passed, the administration moved. We left Popage, we moved into the building over here. The directors moved. The president has moved. Almost everybody is out of the Popage building. The question came down to, what about the rest of them? Well, when we were discussing dates, I said, well, we can be over there and we'll move, which we did a month ahead of schedule. Now, the attorney for the council showed up at my office without discussing anything with me and got this gentleman over here to sign a consent judgment that had all these other departments in it. When I pointed that out, that none of us had agreed to that, Mr. Cormier had never agreed to it, and most importantly, the two attorneys who were signed on that record never agreed to it, I was told, don't worry, we'll take care of it. So, being a team player and trying to have a level of civility, I said, don't worry, Amos, we're all reasonable people. We'll work this out. Little did I know that courtesy and professionalism went out the window. So when I filed a motion with the court, I didn't allege fraud. I didn't allege ill practices. I just tried to do a very polite, Judge, we need to modify this. He told me, file a motion for an extension. We need more time with the water department. We don't want to drop the ball. Plain and simple. That's all that has happened in this case. And I have bent over backwards to make sure that I didn't get into this with the ill practice issue. But if push comes to shove, I'm happy to go there because I don't appreciate people doing things improperly. I don't do that with this council. I don't lie to people. I don't misrepresent anything to anybody. And that is exactly what happened. So maybe that clarifies your question.
Yes, it did. Thank you, sir.
Well, this is what I'll say. We talk about evidence and litigation. Well, I've actually seen the evidence that contradicts what Mr. Barbe just said.
Well, show it to me, buddy, because
you'll see.
I sure didn't
You know what?
do it.
And hopefully this council will vote on this, and y'all can go deal with it in court. Unless you want to hold court now.
I'll be happy.
Because there was a text exchange.
The witnesses who were there that day, you weren't. The witnesses that were there are sitting right here.
Peter,
you weren't there.
Can I ask you this, Peter? Was a consent judgment signed?
Not by me.
Was it signed by the parish attorney's office?
No, it was signed by a guy who was not on the pleadings, was not authorized to sign it, and had no authority to sign it. Out of professional respect, thinking Danny would never go over there and pull that, he signed it.
And
so if you want me to sit there and chastise this man for doing a good job and trying to be helpful, fine.
I'm not blaming Shane at all.
Well,
nothing to do with Shane.
That's the only reason it got signed. But he's not an attorney who was on the pleadings. He's not authorized to sign my signature unless I give it to him.
We're going to let Danny address what I just said.
Go ahead, Mr. Garrett.
We attempted to work out a resolution, a date. Mr. Barbie offered September 10th. I had a discussion with Mr. Black, because he was the author of this resolution. He said that would not satisfy him with regard to this resolution. So on July 13th at 1:18 p.m., I sent an email to Mr. Barbie with a proposed consent judgment establishing an August 31st deadline for all of the office resolutions that were at issue in the mandamus. My text of the email finished with the last sentence of, "I am hopeful that the over 1.5 months will be accepted as sufficient time and we can present the consent judgment to Judge Connor on Monday in lieu of asking him to reset the hearing," that is, reset the hearing on the mandamus. Having not heard anything on Monday, I called. Bill Culver informed me that Mr. Barbie was ill that day. I sent him a text and I says, "Bill says you are ill. Sorry. Anything from Amos on consent judgment?" The response I got back was, "Yes, we are moving starting next week." I took that as that they had agreed to the consent judgment. I've heard nothing other since. I actually went to the parish attorney's office to have Mr. Culver sign it and found out he was actually already going over and looking at his new office. And in talking with Mr. Landry, we amended the pleading in their office to add his name as a member of the parish attorney's office on the signature line. I had no idea he had not had any conversations with Mr. Barbie about it, because I had sent my email several days before that. And again, it was never my intention to sneak anything by anybody. I thought we had an agreement that was going to give them a month and a half to do whatever they needed to do. The next week, I actually left at the end of the next week to go on vacation, and I did get a phone call while I was on vacation from Mr. Barbie saying that there was some problem with the water department moving, and would we be able to get an extension from the council? And I said I would broach that issue. And if you'll recall, we went into executive session at the last council meeting and discussed just that. And based upon the information provided there, and it's the same information that's attached to their motion for extension of time, the water department indicated that they needed 2 weeks to set up the cloud-based system and 2 weeks to test the cloud-based system because they were worried about moving the computers. So I didn't understand why they needed, it seemed like they had enough time to get it done, but they originally filed a motion for a new trial, which Judge Connor denied because we didn't have a trial. He suggested if they needed more time, they file a motion for extension of time. That's what they've done. They're actually seeking an extension of time just for the water department to December 15th. I'm not sure why they need till December 15th. And so, I filed a reply to that, and it hasn't been set for hearing. But everything I did was based upon communications that I had with their office. If there was not any conversation between Mr. Culver or Shane or Peter, I don't have anything to do with that. I thought it was fairly straightforward. But thank you.
Cool. Still? All right. So that's the evidence that when I talk about evidence, Peter, that's what I'm talking about. So we had a discussion on July the 12th, we had the executive session. And out of that, we made a decision. You had a conversation with Danny on the 13th on that Friday. They decided to draw up the consent judgment. It was sent to me. I looked at it, and Danny said, "Hey, look, I think they need." Peter's asking till September 10th. And I said, "I think August 31st is fine." So he drew up the consent judgment, and then on Monday or Tuesday, so July 16th, was a text chain between you and Danny, the one that Danny showed me. So when you said you didn't have any conversation with them, Danny emailed me the text chain and said, "Bo, this is the conversation I had with Peter. Peter's fully aware of it." And I went back and told him that the author of the legislation is not satisfied with the 10th. He wants to go with the 31st. So that's when it got signed. So that's what I'm saying. He showed me, otherwise we'd have had to go and do a different measure. He showed me the text chain. So we drafted the consent judgment to state the 31st. Now, whether or not you communicated with Shane or Bill Carver didn't communicate with whoever needed to communicate with, that's not our issue. You communicated with Danny. And under what Danny thought, and from what I read on the text chain, is that there was an agreement. You didn't agree on the 31st, but you did agree on the 10th. So when after it was signed, and then you guys pushed back and said, hey, look, you know, we don't really agree to that. Shane signed in an error. We had another discussion. So I introduced this particular resolution and even talked to Danny and said, hey, listen, let's just wait. Let's give him a little time. And when I offer it, it's going to be the 13th, which is 3 days after the original date that you had sent in the text. You sent.
I didn't send anything in that text.
You did.
No, I did not.
Yeah.
But read it.
You did.
I did not say I agree to everything in that consent judgment. You strain credulity when you say such things. I'm sitting at home with 103 fever. First time in 30 years I've ever called in sick. And as I sit there in a stupor, he sends me a text, and I discussed with you and the directors September 11th sitting right there.
Right.
And I said, I think we can probably do the administration. I don't know about all the departments. So when he sends me a text and I say a vague answer back, I didn't answer his email saying, yes, I've reviewed your consent judgment and agree with it. All I said was, yeah, the date looks workable, whatever I said. I didn't say I agreed to everything in it.
He sent me the text.
I'm at home sick. First time in 30 years I ever called in sick. He sends me a loosely worded text. That is not consent. That's absurd. That's an absurd notion.
Okay.
And when I caught it, I immediately called him and said, whoa, we got a problem. We're moving. But I said the water department for sure is going to be an issue because we have to move the whole billing system.
We had that's a
so don't sit here and try to. I hate to jump on Mr. Giles's case here, but don't try to insult my integrity because that is exactly what happened.
I'm telling
that text speaks for itself. That's not me saying, yes, I've read your consent judgment and I agree to all the parts of it because that would be consenting.
We had the conversation. He sent me the text.
That text is not an agreement to accept the whole thing. That's absurd.
The way I interpreted the text, Peter, was that you had suggested September 10th.
And I'm suggesting to you that that is intellectually very dishonest because that is not a fair representation of what I said.
Well, that's what was conveyed by our council attorney. So what I decided to do was to wait on this, to wait on it and give y'all more time. So I thought by postponing this for 2 town council meetings and coming to the third one, and actually voted on the 13th, that's 3 days past what you originally suggested, or 2 days if you say the 11th. So it's still, today is still 2 days after your original proposal.
No, what I suggested was the administration would be over here by then. We never discussed civil service. We never discussed recreation. The water department never even came up in it. It didn't even come up until the consent judgment, which isn't even mentioned in that text.
I understand what you're saying.
He said about the date of move.
I don't know if you discussed it or not, but the council discussed it and voted on it.
And that's fine. That's why we moved.
We voted on recreation probably a year and a half ago. We voted on civil service a long time ago. And we voted on the water department a long time ago. Director Giles has had maintenance doing work over there for quite some time, and it's finished. And the whole thing with the IT issue, that's been resolved. It's very clear in the affidavit, and I read affidavit from Mr. Jalpi. It's very clear that we have a problem that's existing. It's a cloud-based issue problem that we need to go to the cloud.
We all know that.
We know it, whether it's over there or over here. So it takes 30 days, 2 weeks to 30 days to fix that problem. So we gave you 45 to actually upgrade the system.
We're debating. We're debating on whether or not you're sitting here trying to say to everybody in the public that you're enforcing a judgment or a consent decree or whatever that was so fairly entered into. It was not. And I want to make sure it's very clear. We never agreed to that. You have to have everybody agreeing to all the terms to have a valid consent judgment.
Okay, so.
And we never did.
So you're right. I'm not an attorney, therefore I'm not a judge. So I can't make that determination. All I can do.
Well, you say you can't make that determination. At the very first moment this came up, called your attorney and told him exactly what had happened. And most people in most professional worlds would have said, okay, let's sit down and work this out. But no, everybody wants to try and act like this is ironclad. Well, I've worked backwards trying to not have to point this finger and have this conversation in public because I try to have some kind of professional courtesy and respect. I like your attorney. I find him to be a very capable, ethical guy. I think it was an honest mistake on both sides of that. And I don't like to have to go there. But when people start trying to impugn my integrity over something that I said or didn't say, it's where I have to draw the line.
And all I'm telling you, I'm not talking about your integrity. I'm telling you that the information that was provided to me by our council attorney is contrary to what you said.
So he didn't tell you about that phone call that when I saw that what was in that consent judgment that I immediately called him on his vacation and said, oh, sorry to interrupt your vacation. Call me when you get back. Did he tell you about that communication?
I don't remember a call.
Did he tell you about when he got back from his vacation and called me and I sat down and explained to him why that wasn't going to be workable?
Do you think it's prudent for us to go ahead and to pass this resolution?
It makes no sense.
Then let the judge hear you guys. Get it out of our hands. It's been out of our hands. You know, we're just trying to enforce multiple resolutions that we've passed over the years.
And I'm saying to you, we have tried and we have done a huge amount of work getting the administration moved over there. And we have done our best. We have one IT guy. Just having to try to set up all the computer systems for us has kept him chasing his tail for a month, on top of the usual workload. Ma'am, I would love to see civil service move. If you can make Ellen Barrios do anything, I'm with you. Because she doesn't exactly listen to anything I've got to say either, so good luck with that one. Recreation's right across the street. That's not a big deal. So,
can I ask you a question about the water department real quick? Have you guys at least signed a contract to upgrade to the cloud?
Yep.
When was that?
He said it in his, oh, you wasn't here for his president's address. He did state that in
When?
his president's address. Sometime since the last meeting it's been signed.
Was it today?
It was before today. 7th. So, we're making everything available that we can do.
Why it took so long to sign a contract, though?
I don't know. It's not my decision. I'll leave that to the president.
Move on to legislation.
Yeah, I'm done unless anybody else has anything else to say. I mean, the bottom line with this whole thing is we should not be in this litigation to begin with.
Well, and the whole bottom line is professional, courteous people wouldn't have had this, and when the honest mistake was made, then it would have been worked out instead of trying to throw Shane under a bus, which is what you're forcing me to do. And it's no reason to do it, Mr. Black. I'm really kind of disappointed in you because, frankly, I think this is a political stunt.
Absolutely, it's not a political stunt.
Then what else do you call it?
This didn't start when Mr. Lapine qualified.
Point of order. We're talking about this legislation, not political.
This legislation did not start when qualifications took place. This legislation has been in effect for about a year and a half to 2 years on recreation that was authored and passed by Mr. Russo in this council, by civil service by Mr. Edgecombe in this council, by the water department by myself in this council, by the administration by myself in this council. Those are 4 separate entities at this council who has the authority in this charter to do. Peter, hold on. Please let me finish.
I suggested to you that you don't have the authority. Have you ever even bothered to ask me my opinion?
I think
because I would have told you.
Yeah, that's why we're here.
I can read it.
Right. So my point is, this is not political. This has been happening for a year and a half to 2 years. I'm not hashing out. I'm ready to move. Call a question.
Legislation has been called to question. Machine is open.
I guess we'll be following the next writ.
Legislation passes with 6 yes votes, a no vote for Mr. Bartholomew, and abstentions from Councilmember Juneau and Salvant. Next item, please.
Thank you.
G, an ordinance to amend the 5-year capital improvements plan regulatory upgrades capacity increase Belle Chase Water Treatment Plant project and otherwise provide with respect thereto.
I'd like to offer this with an insertion on line 12 in the blank by appropriating $8.3 million to the regulatory upgrades of the Belle Chase Water Treatment Plant from the VP Settlement Fund. Can I get a second with that?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Roussel. And I'm going to let Mr. Roussel elaborate on this because he was in meetings regarding this project and he has a little more breakdown of details.
Thank you, Ms. Williams. After a long period of time waiting to be able to move forward on the expansion of the Belle Chase Water Plant, we have finally come to the time where we can do that with the funding from the BP oil settlement. What this will do, and I will break this down for you, the Belle Chase Water Treatment Plant Phase 1 plant expansion, the design plans are 100% complete and can be ready to advertise in 2 to 3 weeks. The design brings the plant to 9 million gallons per day. The construction estimate is $11 million. The way that these funds are allocated for the project will be funding sources, or the original allocation we had allocated was $2.7 million of BP funds, $3 million from the annual wastewater budget, and the other $3 million will come from an alternate FEMA project from the Port Sulphur Booster Station project. The next $2.3 million that we need will come from the allocation of the 8.3 that we are appropriating today. So what this will do will give us another project phase to be completed with the expansion of the Belle Chase Water Plant. But having said that, we have also the project that needs the raw water intake project. Is Mr. Dugas still here? No. What we have is the Belle Chase Water Treatment Plant raw water intake pump station that is a $6 million project. And those designs are 100% complete, and they're ready to go to bid as well. So totally on this project, it's actually a $17 million project. The $11 million is for the plant, the $6 million is for the raw water intake, and what this will give us is 9 million gallons per day of production. So, you know, we've been dealing with this for 2.5, 3 years now. I'm happy to say that with this appropriation, we'll be able to move forward with the water department moving to this building. That'll allow us to tear down the building that they are in now. And finally, I believe we'll be able to produce enough water to supply our community. There is another caveat that we are working on through the Regional Planning Commission. We are working on an economic development grant for $2 million, up to $2 million, to be able to put towards this project. If we are successful in winning that grant, then we will be able to take $2 million back from the appropriation and utilize it in other sources. So having said that, I'm asking for your support. Hopefully we can move forward and be able to produce our own water. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Bartholomew?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I am in support of that as well. But we do have some serious issue as well on the East Bank, especially the northern end with water problems, pipes. Because we can't even increase the volume in the water line without the line breaking. We just don't have it. So we need to get some additional funding from that BP money as well, so that I can put the same type of quality of water life on the East Bank. And it's very much needed. And I don't have a problem with the problem on this, and it needs to be done. I agree 100%. But I assure you, I will come up with some legislation next meeting, and hoping that you will do the same and support that needed service to provide the quality of the water for that East Bank And it's been already proven many times that it is a deficit of being able to provide the service that is needed. Because the fire department itself cannot operate, cannot fight fire because of that. And every time the line breaks, you have contaminants. So I put people in a different way as well. So all I'm asking that you keep vigilant, be open to that project as well. Thank you very much. That's all, Madam Chairman. Thank you.
I agree with you, Mr. Bartholomew. At this past meeting, myself and Mr. Roussel did bring that up, and they are full aware of that, and we are too, and we know you need help. Yes, sir.
I just want to remind everyone before we vote that this is going to take a 2/3 vote of this council because that's the stipulations of the moving money out of the BP fund. Any other questions or comments? Yes, Mr. Henry.
Mr. Russo, you've been working on this for a long time. Thank you. Darcy's finally getting some water.
And with that being said, this is going to allow water to be pumped all the way down parish-wide. That's part of the reason for the expansion as well.
West Bank.
West Bank, yes, West Bank, sir. West Bank. We'll work on the East Bank next.
Yeah, but I mean, which is needed.
No.
Very much needed. But that is a necessity.
Machine is open. Legislation passes 9-0. Next item, please.
A resolution authorizing the Plaquemines Parish government represented by the parish president to do all things necessary and proper to negotiate, perfect, and execute a cooperative endeavor agreement with the Plaquemines Parish Assessor's Office for the cost sharing of professional services for the collection of data and the valuation of certain oil and gas personal property located in the Plaquemines Parish for the year 2019 ad valorem tax year and otherwise to provide with respect thereto.
I'll offer. Can I get a second? Seconded by Mr. Bartholomew. I'm going to let Ms. Hazel elaborate on this. It's just we did it last year and we're just renewing a contract for another year. Go ahead, Ms. Hazel.
Exactly. Hello, good afternoon to everyone. My name is Belinda Hazel. I'm the assessor here in Plaquemines Parish. I'm here today to, just as Nicole said, to once again ask you to enter into a cooperative endeavor agreement with the assessor's office. It's for the 2019 tax year. We entered into the same agreement for the 2018 tax year. The cooperative endeavor agreement will enable the assessor to engage the services of Visual Lease Services, an engineering firm that specializes in the valuation of oil and gas properties. In addition, VLS will audit the surface equipment of 20% of the parish's oil and gas companies. We did that this year as well. The council entered into this same agreement last year, as we just said, and as a result, we have added approximately 1,000 assets to the 2018 tax roll. The only difference between the CEA that you signed last year or agreed to be participants in last year and this year's is that the pro rata payment will be directly deducted from the taxes prior to you receiving that money instead of our office billing the government. The other taxing bodies have already approved this cooperative endeavor agreement, so you guys are the last ones up, and I'm going to respectfully ask you to adopt it today or agree to enter into it today. Any questions?
Thank you, Ms. Hazel.
Question?
Yes, sir. Oh, you're calling a question for that? Okay, legislation. Question has been called by Mr. Bartholomew on the legislation. Machine is open. Legislation passes 8-0 with Mr. Black being away.
Thank you very much.
I, a resolution authorizing Plaquemines Parish Community Action Agency to prepare the necessary application to the Louisiana Housing Corporation for a grant to provide utility assistance to the residents of Plaquemines Parish for the fiscal year 2019 and authorizing the President of the Plaquemines Parish government to sign and submit said application and contract and otherwise to provide with respect thereto.
I'll offer. Seconded by Mr. Bartholomew. Offer as read is just for the Community Action Agency to prepare an application to provide assistance. Questions or comments? Question has been called by Mr. Vidal. Machine is open. He must have a hot date. Legislation passes 8-0. Next item, please.
J, a resolution authorizing the Plaquemines Parish Community Agency to prepare the necessary application to the Louisiana Workforce Commission, receiving the Community Services Block Grant funds for the program year 2019, authorizing the President of the Plaquemines Parish Government to sign and submit said application and contract, and otherwise to provide with respect thereto.
I'll offer. Seconded by Mr. Badalamy and Ms. Salvant. Same thing. Legislation is just giving them permission to, resolution for them to apply for the grants.
Question?
Question has been called. Machine is open. Grant for community action. Legislation passes 9-0. Next item.
K, a resolution authorizing the Plaquemines Parish Community Action Agency to prepare and file an application with the Louisiana Department of Transportation and Development on behalf of the Plaquemines Parish Government for a grant under 49 CFR 5311 Formula Grant for Rural Access and/or 49 CFR 5339 Grants for Bus and Bus Facility Program, as amended to provide public rural transportation to the residents of Plaquemines Parish, and further authorizing Plaquemines Parish President to execute and file with such application an assurance or any other documents required, and otherwise provide with respect thereto.
I'll offer. Seconded by Mr. Juneau and Mr. Bartholomew. I'll offer as read. Questions or comments? Hearing none, the machine is open. Legislation passes 9-0. Next item.
L, an ordinance to amend the 5-year capital improvements plan for the horizontal curve treatment parish-wide project, and otherwise to provide with respect thereto.
I'll offer. Seconded by Mr. Lapine. What this is just to appropriate $45,000, which is fully reimbursable to my understanding.
What is for?
Horizontal curve treatment parish-wide project, the curve from DOTD.
I just want the public to know.
I'm sorry? 195, but we're allocating 45 to the project, to the horizontal. Mine says 45. Oh, I'm sorry, it's 195,000. My bad. Yes, ma'am. I think it's parish-wide. It's parish-wide, yes, ma'am. I received this from the administration. Any other questions or comments? Hearing none, the machine is open. I said that wrong. Legislation passes 9-0. Next item.
M, an ordinance to amend the 5-year capital improvements plan AMI systems implementation parish-wide project, and otherwise provide with respect thereto.
Roussel? Mr. Roussel offers. Is there a second? Seconded by Mr. Byrd. Mr. Roussel?
Yes, what this does, this is the first leg of the implementation of the automatic water meter reader program. What we will do is implement water meters that will be read from the office up to maybe 4 times a day. The meter reading situation where when you have estimated bills now will hopefully disappear. This will be, the first step will be to build out the infrastructure on top of the water towers parish-wide, and with that being built out, then it will be up to the administration to decide where the rest of the money is spent on meters in the ground. And over a 3-year period, we should be completed where the parish will completely replace all of the meters in the parish with automatic read meters. And the benefit will be that if you have possibly a leak in your home or something, the alert will go off in the office. They'll be able to call you and try to notify you of the leak, and you can arrest the leak before it gets to the point of an exorbitant bill. The advantages are that We won't have people in the field having to try to get to the meters. The possibility of those individuals being transferred to other positions has been advocated since day one, so this is not a job elimination project. It's an efficiency project. It's to make sure that we don't wind up like the city of New Orleans. We want to prevent that. We want to be able to provide a good service at a reasonable cost to our constituents, knowing that the water that they are being billed for is actually going through the meter. And I think this is a good step. We've been at this for over 2 years now. We have a pilot program on Good News Avenue that's been in the ground for well over a year and a half. 99 meters there. The accuracy rate is 99.5, whatever it is, almost 100% accuracy. And so this is a long time coming. I'm pleased to say that this goes hand in hand with our water improvement upgrades, which is something that the constituents don't really see except when they get the bill. So this will eliminate a lot of problems. So I'm asking for your support.
Any other questions or comments? Hearing none, the machine is open. This legislation passes 9-0. Next item.
An ordinance adopting the Plaquemines Parish Government travel and other employee expenses policies and procedures and otherwise to provide with respect thereto.
Mr. Roussel? Mr. Roussel offers. I'll second. Mr. Roussel?
Yes, what this does, this is in response to the audit committee's work through the audit committee and having the administration on board. Mr. Peoples took this seriously when we had our audit, looked at the findings of the internal audit committee and the auditor as to what we need to do to improve the situation. It's the policy of the Plaquemines Parish government to comply with the Code of Governmental Ethics for the state of Louisiana. In general, the travel and other employee expenses should be incurred in the most economically efficient and effective manner to accomplish the government business. So what this does, sets out a policy on authorization and review process, travel advances, mileage for use, personally used vehicles. It goes into travel and other employee expenses on general policies, employee meals, special meals. So it is the most comprehensive policy that the government has ever had. I want to thank Mr. Peoples and his staff for working with the audit committee to be able to come here today and present this policy, which we hope will be followed and which will be enforced. So thank you, Mr. Peoples, for all of your hard work. And if you'd like to say something, you're welcome to chime in, because this was a joint effort between the audit committee, and I want to thank my colleagues here, Ms. Salvo and Mr. Juneau on the audit committee, for working with us to get to this point today.
Mr. Peoples?
I'd just like to say, first of all, that there's been a lot of negative publicity in several parishes as to their travel and entertainment expenses. My experience with Plaquemines Parish is we've never had that. In over 15 years as Director of Internal Audit and currently as Director of Administration, I think our employees and elected officials have been very prudent in how they've used taxpayer money for travel and entertainment expenses. We've always had good policies and procedures in effect, but they haven't been formalized. And what this document does is formalize those policies and procedures in a very comprehensive manner. There was a lot of work that went into this. We considered very, very seriously the work of the current internal auditor and the audit committee. We looked at state travel regulations. We looked at previous ordinances and resolutions of the council. We looked at what the Plaquemines Medical Center had done with their policies and procedures, and looked at a number of different sets of policies and procedures that we found on the internet in drafting this. So I definitely appreciate the support of the Internal Audit Department, the other directors, and the parish president. I think we have a very good set of policies and procedures now that hopefully will be very useful in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Peoples, for your help.
Any other questions or comments, Mr. Bartholomew?
Yes. Job well done. Clears up a lot of opinionated questions have been come to resolve the specifics, in which I thank the KIT committee and Jim's for making that happen. It's very simple, very specific to what can be accepted and what's not accepted. So I want to thank y'all for that effort.
Hold on 1 second, Mr. Henry.
Yeah, I just want to echo what has been said earlier by Mr. Peoples and Mr. Roussel and Mr. Bartholomew. And what it does, it shows what happens and the results, with the results you can get when council and administration works together. So I too want to thank my colleagues on the audit committee and the administration for coming up with this very comprehensive policy. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Henry?
Yes. I just want to know, do this include all the government political subdivisions too, such as the Port Harbor and Terminal District, or just the government?
This is for the Plaquemines Parish government. The Port Harbor and Terminal District has a policy, and it's been reviewed by the internal auditor, and it has some comments from him as well. But this is a policy for the Plaquemines Parish government, which some of us believe includes the port, which some of us believe does not.
That's why I asked, you know.
Any other questions or comments? Hearing none, the machine is open. Legislation passes 9-0. Next item.
An ordinance to amend the 5-year capital improvements plan drainage Jesuit Bend project and levee maintenance and equipment project and otherwise provide with respect thereto.
Mr. Burt?
I'll offer the changes.
Mr. Burt's offering changes.
On line 9, we'll strike through 1.8 million and replace that with 1.6 million. Line 12, strike through 200,000 and replace that with 400,000. And with those changes, I will offer.
Mr. Burt offers with those changes, and Mr. Roussel seconds.
Yeah, what this ordinance does, this is some leftover levy money that we're going to transfer to the Jesuit Bend drainage project. And then also, it will take $400,000 and transfer it to the operations department for levee maintenance moving forward, which I think is very much needed. And buy it quick so we don't lose it. So I would ask my colleagues to please support this. I think it's a much needed project for Don's group and as well as the drainage in districts 6 and 8 and top portion of Miss Alvin's district.
Mr. Bartholomew?
Yeah, the only question I have, if we can take, I'm assuming it's levy project funding, that we move into drainage funding project.
Hold on.
There was money appropriated for levy work, right? Yeah. And we moving for drainage. So my question is,
For levy maintenance.
No. I'm talking about drainage. He got here drainage.
1.6 is going to the Jesuit Bend drainage.
Oh, yeah, for drainage, yeah.
Well, I'm saying it came from money that's being put to drainage.
Mr. Bartholomew.
Now, wait a minute. Can I?
I was going to explain it to you.
Okay, well, go ahead, explain.
So when this whole thing came up, we reached out to the attorneys who talked to the bond counsel, and drainage is a subcategory of flood protection. So drainage would be considered, would fall in that category.
I'm not questioning.
No, I just want to explain it. No.
My own thing is that we tried to do some things before about taking money from a levy project and put it somewhere else. But we couldn't do that because it has to be placed on a levy project. But that didn't happen. See, but right now it's something different, and I don't blame you for it. I'm gonna vote for it. But I'm just saying how inconsistent some people are.
No, I don't disagree.
All right. That's all I have. I just wanted to make that known. Question?
Mr. Roussel?
Oh, I'm sorry.
I'll yield, but I was going to explain it, but let's move.
I didn't do a good enough job.
Okay.
Did all right, Charlie, but it...
Yielding, sir?
I'm getting a little deep. No comment.
No comment. Question has been called by Mr. Bartholomew on the legislation. Machine is open. Legislation passes 9-0.
Thank you.
7, new business. Introduction of resolutions wherein a suspension is being sought, there are none. 7B, update and presentation by District 7 Councilmember Trufant Salvant.
Mr. Salvant, you're deferring? That's deferred.
7C, District 1 update, Councilmember Bartholomew.
Mr. Bartholomew, District 1 update.
Yes. Thank you for reminding me. The courthouse, they're putting the glass on the front section. All they have left for the glass is the last section on the back end. And because the front, the middle, the side and the front part on the northern end, west side, has been completed. So now they're working on the south side to complete that end. Also, they're going to have power in the building next week. First of this week, they're going to have complete power. Temporary complete power in the building because all electrical work has been completed. So Entergy will come and supply the power for the courthouse next week. Levees. Grass is about 10 feet high in the back, Highway 39. Grass needs to be cut. Got alligators coming, snakes coming, deers coming, even got a few refugees coming. Sneaking in on the grass back there.
Can't even get to the marina.
Can't even get to the marina. Can't even see nothing. But anyway, all jokes aside, the grass is very high. And Mr. Bledger, we need to try to do something. I know we only sometimes have 2 tractors cutting, which is not appropriate for the amount of grass and the distance we have to travel, because we have to go from Bohemia to Scarsdale. And, well, Scarsdale Ferry, not Scarsdale, Carnarvon, I'm sorry. And from White Ditch to Carnarvon is both sides of the levee. And from Carnarvon to Phoenix is just the front of the Mississippi River levee. Then Phoenix to Bohemia is both levees. And we just cannot keep the grass cut with three tractors, sometime 2, sometime 1. And all you have is 3 personnel that's cutting grass. And that's not adequate at all. That's not adequate. And the other concern I have is the Davant Park. I had asked several times to cut the grass around the park by the lagoon. There's some numerous alligators in the area. We need to cut that to run them out of there. And yesterday, there was one back coming across the field again where the kids are, right by the pool, going across the highway. So, I don't know what it takes for us to get these things done, but it needs to be done. Also, there's a request for Phoenix High School that made a request to cut the ditch along the Highway 39 and the side of the school boatways because of that as well. That's been over 2 months. That hasn't happened. So you talk about personnel, that's why we need some more personnel, I guess, to get that done. And I don't even believe the grass has been cut along the main ditches. Grasses have not been cut for the water to drain Highway 15 to the drainage canal. That hasn't been cut in months. So you see, what the anticipation that we have to look forward to? Things have to change. And we have to be more prudent to what service that we need to provide. Then you have mosquitoes. The ditches retain mosquitoes. They're there. They're in abundance. Last night, I thought they were taking me for a ride. I pull out my car, they were tearing me up. And that's because the ditches haven't been done. You know what I'm talking about? I started to call HCOM down there, do something, help. Because I've never seen that many mosquitoes. I'm just saying, it's terrible. So, we need to do something. I don't know if they have the same problem on the west side. So, but when you have only 3 tractors to cut that grass, which host and hide the mosquitoes, it's never going to improve. So I guess in the near future, we're going to have to come with some kind of funding to provide more assistance so Mr. Bessel can do his job. Also, I want to thank Mr. Bessel and his crew for fixing the Davant Center along Highway 15 where we put the pipes in. And it looks like a public building. It looked like a Plaquemine Parish government building and facility. that it illuminates the design, the beauty of it, of the center itself on the front part of it. So I want to thank y'all for doing that. The only problem there at the park is the football field. We've been working on that for 3 years. It still hadn't gone. The grass and took it again. So we haven't finished that. So now we don't have a football field for the kids to play on. So all the games that they play, they have to play at the other school team park. And it's not since he's been here, but we've been working this, been here for 2 years, 3 years now, trying to get it done. Also, recreation, the pool has been working real well. Kids been keeping, opening, working. Kids had the opportunity to use it more efficiently this year. Now, the only problem we have is the leakage problem. We still have that leakage problem, and we will need to have the design, the engineering drawings of the pool to find out where those pipes are so that we can resolve that problem. Because if we don't do that, we're going to continue to have the problems we have today. And that's why the bill was up for $20,000. It'll be more than that maybe later because it's getting worse. And we spent a whole lot of money a couple of years ago on trying to resolve that, and it hasn't been resolved. And the only way it's going to be resolved if we know where the specifics, and that is where the pipes are, to change them. The marina, Mardi Gras Pass is opened up again. We got the lilies. So here we didn't add another instrument to elude the fish and the shrimps to leave our area. And that means we have no people coming in to do what they used to do. And that means there is no economy is being enhanced at the Point Lahash Marina. And we really need to close that Mardi Gras Pass to bring this thing back, a way of life, to the people in that area. Because it's really sad. A beautiful place like it used to be, productive place like it used to be, which supported not only the state as well, but also Plaquemine Parish and its tax base. Because people used to make money there, down there, and spend money. But anyway, I know we're trying, we're still fighting to let the council members know that we're still fighting for that. The other issues are that Highway 15. Down there we have grass growing in it, crumbling. The components are being crumbled now like sand, I guess, more or less. Every time you get a little water and stuff, you hit it. Rocks do just fly all over the place. So that never was done. That's over 60 years that that part of the highway wasn't done. So there's a great need for that. And I'm not going to talk about the library. I'm not going to talk about other issues like that. I'm going to talk about necessities. And I appreciate Mr. Roussel trying to do something with the ambulance that need to be purchased like we used to do a long time ago. When I was on the council the first time, every year we used to buy one. So we kept it up to date, and they never used to go out because it was almost like brand new and kept them going. That made a profound difference. Woodlawn need their firehouse. We took the money to operate EMS that killed Woodlawn Firehouse. That needs to be put back in the budget because people are paying taxes on that side to improve the quality of fire protection. And because of that, we are at a 10. And a 10 is just like not even having a fire department. That's all I have today. Thank you for listening to my conversation.
Yes, sir. Always entertaining. Next item, please.
District 2 update, Councilmember Black.
Mr. Black.
Yeah, I'll keep it short. Everything that John just said, I have the same issues, Don, except for the pool, community center, marina. I don't have those in my district. I rest. Nothing else.
Grass.
I don't see no grass.
You passed on the main highway.
All I see is cement.
Next item, please.
F, discussion regarding Highway 23 grass cutting, Councilmember Edgecombe.
Mr. Edgecombe.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I guess this is to the administration. I have a question, or a couple of questions. A good while back, I know we asked to have the neutral grounds cut numerous times. Also, we've asked to have the contract with DOTD signed a few times, which it never was. Here recently, after the contract was signed for and awarded to a different company, now we started cutting the grass in the medians. I'm just curious as to why.
Councilman Edgecombe, are you requesting that you voted to cut the manpower from about good 60-something%. So are you requesting that the people that are cutting grass in your district be moved to Councilman Bartholomew's district?
I asked a question.
A yes or no?
We asked you to cut the grass, you wouldn't. Then we asked you to sign a contract, you wouldn't.
Are you asking that the people that are cutting grass in your district be moved?
When the contract was signed and awarded to another company, we started cutting the grass. I'm just asking the question why.
So you're complaining about the grass getting cut?
He's just asking why is it being cut now?
This is politics. That's fine.
Well, I will say this. I want to commend the people in District 6, 7, 8, and 9 that have been trying to keep the medians cut for us where we can see when we go down the highway. I know, Ms. Amos, is not a political stunt. It's a question, sir. That's all, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Next item, please. Oh, wait. You have a question on that?
Yeah. I'm not, you there?
Yeah, you're there.
All right. It's my understanding, and this is not a political fight, so.
The hell it's not.
Okay, can I finish?
Yes, you can.
It's my understanding, I just want to get it from a budgetary standpoint here, and a finance standpoint, and a manpower standpoint, Don. It's my understanding that the state, since we decided not to contract with the state, that the state has third-partied out grass cutting services for the medians and the right-of-ways just on the side of the shoulders.
Right away.
Yeah, they third-party contracted out, since we didn't sign an agreement, to cut those areas from the base, so Russell Drive, through Myrtle Grove. Well, actually further than that. My understanding is, and I think this is why Jeff put it on the agenda, is that on a weekend, parish employees were cutting that area. So I guess I have a couple questions. One, why were we cutting that area when it's already under the contract from the state? Number two is, if we were cutting those on the weekends, more than likely that involved overtime. So were we paying those employees overtime to cut areas that are already under contract with the state? Number three, if those answers are all yes, then why couldn't we utilize those employees not to cut the areas that are under contract, but to cut the levees in areas that are not under contract? I think that's the simplest way I can put it. It's a simple question. I guess Don or Mr. Cormier, are we under contract? Is the state under contract with a third party from Russell Drive South?
Well, let me answer it all.
All right.
And we're going to start from the past. In the past, we were receiving $184,000 per year.
Right.
We cut the grass probably 18 to 20 times a year on Highway 23. Mr. Cormier decided not to have the contract because it wasn't worth the money that they were going to give us. He was trying to negotiate for more money, which we really need to do that. Highway 23 from the plant going down, the RNA plant going down, is more, it gets wider, it gets higher, it has water problems, there's a lot of different things that go on going down the road. In fact, towards Nicole's district, it gets horrible if we don't get down there. So the contract that was put out, and yes, there was a contract put out, and I think it was for $130-something thousand. The guy can't do it. That's why he was let go and somebody else in now. But the way we look at it, and the way we had to cut the grass on the median. There's no two ways about it. The water was going to sit there in some spots, and it just got to be to where you couldn't see. So at $184,000, and we were spending probably approximately $400,000 a year to cut the grass on the medians. That's what we were actually spending. So we had $16,000 more that we were spending to cut the grass. So if I cut the grass 3 to 4 times this year on the medium, I'm still saving a bunch of money, and our parish looks better to all the people that come from out of the state, out of the parish, and for all the events that go on in Venice and on the south end. We look like something. So that was a decision that was made so we could make ourselves look good. okay, and we're still saving a lot of money. Yes, we spent overtime to do that. And we spent overtime. Now, I could have cut the grass on Highway 23 by taking my tractors and moving them to cut the grass at that time off the levees. Then I'd have to move them a good bit distance. But I was there cutting the grass on Highway 23, decided to cut the grass there, then moved to the levees when we got to the spot for the levees. So even though I was going to spend overtime on the levees that weekend, which we're going to have to spend overtime coming up soon here too after all this rain that we got through, just to keep it down manageable. So yes, we spent overtime because I didn't feel like the tractor should have to go 20 miles just to get on the levees and cut overtime there because we had to do that anyway. So I just left the tractors on Highway 23 where I was. So on all those examples all those questions, that's where we end up today because we need to maintain the highway and we need to maintain the levees also. The ditches are a different thing. I talked to y'all about that before, and Mr. Burt is going to afford us to have some tractors to do that, but we do need people. I have to always mention that, and Mr. Bartholomew, I'm very sorry. It's my side of the river too. It should be maintained much better. I need more people there too. But Mr. Black, that's the way it went.
Well, let me just say this. And I asked some simple questions, and you provided me with a rational solution to a rational answer of why you did what you did. So I was going to wait until Mr. Roussel's next item to applaud you for what you did with that. Well, I'm going to tell you, okay, I read that on my flight back this afternoon. I really appreciate that. I appreciate that answer. I'm not being argumentative. I'm asking you a question because that's what we're supposed to do. You provided an answer that was logical and rational, and I'm fine with that. So I applaud you for your efforts. I applaud you for your efforts that you wrote that letter and gave it to the council this morning. And I actually applaud Mr. Cormier for hiring Mr. Bechtel. That was one hell of a hire. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next item, please. Next item is deferred, or withdrawn, huh?
Yes, that's because we have an answer.
Yes, it's withdrawn because Mr. Bechtel provided the answer to all the council members prior to the meeting.
7H, discussion regarding Port Sulphur lockup mold case. Councilmember Bartholomew.
Yes, Mr. Sergeant, Darrell Kosey would like to speak about these concerns.
State your name and address, please, sir.
My name is Darrell Kosey. My address is 411 Highway 39, Braithwaite, Louisiana. I come to address the council on the vote for that judgment that was made when Mr. Roussel was president. I sit here and I listen to the council talk about honoring judgments that made in their behalf. And that judgment been so long, half of the litigants of that council have deceased and gone on. The other half that's still living sustain multiple medical issues to where some of that money will be able to help on some of my medical expenses that occur from that incident. So, as I say, it's been before the council several times, and they turned it down. They refused to vote that the money be paid. The judgment been ordered, and I ask that the council vote for it.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, Mr. Kosey. Yeah, you and I had a discussion, and you and I worked together for a long time, and I worked with a lot of the folks that were in that suit, and understand that. We had some discussions. We've asked our legal department to put us together a list of, and I think they're compiling that list. I think Mr. Bartholomew was going to be the one that go ahead and offered it, but put a list together of all of the suits that we owe money on, and then we're going to take that into consideration when we go back and make those decisions. So there is work being done to get to that point, and I think, like I spoke to you the other day, legal is working on getting that list, and I think Mr. Bartholomew is working on offering it at some point. So.
Mr. Bartholomew?
Yes, I think it's looking within the perimeter of a time frame. A year, 2 years, 3, 4, 5, 6 months, 30 days, I don't know. That's what he's looking for, right?
You have something, Shane? Go ahead.
I've been looking at the policy and working on that. We can probably have something for next council meeting that we can introduce, and then the approach we've taken is we're going to try to adopt a variation on what Baton Rouge does, where you basically separate the goats from the sheep. You know, you take the ones that are willing to work with us and you put them in one list, and the ones that don't want to work with us, you put them in another list. And so the people that are willing to make a deal, put them in a list, and then you sort of go down, you know, every year and whittle it down as we can. And so that's the approach. This is one of the older cases we have, so it's very likely to be dealt with as soon as y'all are willing to act upon the list once the list is established. And so budget's coming up in November. We should be able to, I would think y'all could act on it then if y'all are so inclined.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Kosei. Any other questions or comments on that subject? Next item.
I, status update on the quads, Councilmember Williams.
I just, President Cormier, I just wanted to know, I've been asked by a couple of constituents, the quad project, are we making any headway there? Or you?
Yes, Mr. Dugas.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yes, Mr. Dugas is going to handle the question. There is a problem, yet another problem caused by Bergdahl and Graves, because they omitted one of the ponds that's back there on their map. But Mr. Dugas can further elaborate upon, not only did they pull out the contract and leave us in the lurch, but they also, their plans omitted one of the ponds.
Mr. Dugas?
Okay. First, I'm going to address, there's two projects that were ongoing with that, if y'all don't mind. Just to give you an update, the pavilion project, we're hoping to get the final plans for the pavilion this month. Okay, so Mr. Henry? Okay. So that was good news. On the going to the quad project, in the original plans, PPG had always agreed to do some of the earthwork in the beginning, some of the site work. So we have started with Mr. Beshel's direction. We have been trying to clear some of the areas in the back. Upon clearing the areas in the far back, we are required, as part of the plans, to dig an outfall ditch to the canal. When we started doing the alignment for this ditch, on the plans, there's an omission of the third pond that's in between the two, and the ditch runs through the third pond. So we cannot run an open ditch through an oxidation pond. Even without a surface, you can't do it. DEQ will not allow that. So we had to reroute the ditch around the ponds to allow for proper drainage. So we are working on it. If y'all have seen, if y'all driven to the back of the complex, you'll see the bulldozer back there and the areas being cleared. So we are taking steps positively to get the project started.
Okay, I was just wondering what the status of it was. Yes, Mr. Black?
I mean, I don't know. I hate going back and forth with you, Mr. Cormier, but I can't let, and I'm not a big fan of Bergdahl and Graves, you know, because of what has happened. I think that's a totally separate issue. But I will say that they did not back out of the contract. You made that comment that they backed out of the contract. They did. On February 22nd, this council voted unanimously to appropriate the SREA funds to that particular project. And it's a good project. It still is a good project. I think Mr. Dugas and Allsouth both said we need a contract amendment. I believe his office, from my understanding, provided a contract amendment that would be suitable to legal department in early March. On June 14th, Bergdahl and Graves sent the administration a letter. And in that letter, and I'll read it, it says, "Dear Mr. Cormier, as indicated in recent emails and discussions with your staff, we have received the proposed amendment dated May 31st, 2018. May 31st, remember that date, to the above referenced contract. As per the recommendations of our insurance company, we forwarded it to your attorney for review and comment. Sorry, their attorney. During his review, he noted that this contract, which was executed on May 24, 2016, had automatically terminated 2 years from the execution date of May 24, 2018, as per Section 7 of that agreement. Obviously, it is not appropriate to amend an expired contract and terminated contract. You may recall that the most recent contract was a 2-year continuation of the original agreement dated July 11th, 2013, which had also automatically terminated under similar circumstances. So my point is that when the council appropriated the funds, the $7.5 million funds for both of those projects from Saria on February 22nd, and then the engineering department amended the contract and gave it to legal for their review, it took March, April, May, 3 months for legal to then send the amended contract back to Bergdahl and Graves for their approval. 4 days after the contract, the original contract had expired. So their attorneys have said it's illegal for us to amend the contract because the contract's expired. If it took 3.5 months from the time this council passed the ordinance, they would probably be still in the contract, in my opinion. So my point is that I'm not sure why it took so long to get the contract back to Bergdahl and Graves for their legal team to review it and then either execute it or just wait till it was expired. And I'm not trying to defend Bergdahl and Graves at all on this issue, but I will say that when they received the amended contract, the contract had already expired.
Yes, yes. I know that you had private email communications with the gentleman from Bergdahl and Graves, Councilman Black, so there is a relationship there. I wasn't privy to those communications. Someone did send me a copy of those, though, at a later date. But one thing that Bergdahl and Graves, if you want to open up this can of worms again, they complained about the fact that you cut the funding for this project. And they stated in an email that I saw that you had cut the funding too much. But I know you're trying to cover for them. What our chief engineer has just stated is that they omitted, the holdup now is that they omitted to document a holding pond that was there, that had any inspection would have revealed it. Furthermore, the Plaquemines Parish government's consultant that's been doing this since the Nungif's days, one of them told me that he had never seen this happen before, where someone like Bergdahl and Graves made, and don't quote me on the exact number, but about $500,000 on preparing this work and these plans, all of a sudden pulls out and doesn't finish up the project. So those are all our facts.
The contract expired, right?
So, right, it did expire. So let me get back to a couple of your points. I have no idea where you get that I'm covering up for Bergdahl and Graves at all. And you're correct. I've had conversations and meetings with Bergdahl and Graves. Matter of fact, I probably had over 20 of them, with myself included, with many members of the council for the last 4 years, because we've been trying to get this project off the ground. It was off the ground under your father's administration until Mr. Melvin Burmaster wrote the bond language so bad that nobody bid on it. So when we had an engineering estimate, come back and say that the project would be probably $7.5 million, which was what we had to spend. That's why we were able to go out to bid. We had one bidder come back at like $9 million because of the bond language was so bad. And everybody in the state knows how bad that language was. It's so bad that even Mr. Barbay agreed to fix it. And he did fix it. He did fix it for us. The problem is, we decided as a council to go ahead and split that money. Instead of doing one project with 8 baseball fields, because we needed basketball facilities and volleyball facilities and indoor multi-purpose facilities, we thought it was prudent to take that project and split it in 2. to take a $7.5 million project and put 2.5 into fixing the pavilion where you have basketball, volleyball, multi-purpose, wrestling, etc., and then take $5 million and just do one set of quads, so 4 fields, which we think is well within the amount of money needed to do that project. So I'm not sure why Bergdahl and Graves decided, hey, you know what, we don't want to enter into a third contract, but there's no defense there, and I don't think that we even need them. If we get the CADs and the other plans, and like the engineer said, the director is already preparing the property, and that's where I'm at. So we had the money originally 3 years ago into the bond language, screwed it up.
Councilman Black, we weren't talking about the bond language. We were trying to get this project moved forward, and I know you tend to love to hold things back. The problem here is that they omitted a holding pond. Now, the chairwoman was very kind in letting you go off in all these other different tangents. The problem right now is that there was an omission by your friends on a retaining pond. That's what we're trying to solve. So this long-winded thing about bonds and everything else, that of no moment. That was completely of no moment.
I just want
take a walk back there and you can see the 3 ponds.
Where the project is. That was my question.
Yeah,
where's the project?
And I'm correcting a statement that was made by the president that was false.
No, where was? You just want to argue, Councilman Black.
I don't argue.
Just want to argue.
You said that they backed out of the contract.
You just want to argue, Councilman
I'm reading
Black.
a letter to you from them, and clearly states that
the consultant for Plaquemines Parish government told me he had never seen someone pull out of something like this. Now, amendments are done all the time to contracts, Councilman Black.
The contract was expired. That's the point.
You just want to argue.
No, I don't. I want to show you the facts.
No, you just want to argue.
Next item, please.
All right.
J, update on pause, Councilmember Black.
Mr. Black?
Where are we at on pause?
What you want to know?
Where?
The AC is fixed, the lights are fixed, the roof has been repaired.
So that's some questions I have. So the lighting has been repaired.
Yeah.
In full. Is that like temporary lighting? I'm saying just it's enough lighting for them to function.
Yes. Yes.
And the roof has been totally redone, not totally redone, but patched up enough where it doesn't leak.
That's correct.
And the AC?
The AC guy is there. Matter of fact, I think it was there yesterday. And so whenever they're having the issues, I told them just to contact the AC man. So everything been working great. I don't know if you heard anything different, but I haven't gotten any complaints.
I haven't heard anything. I was out of town, so I put on the agenda and I want to.
Haven't got any complaints. Everybody, I think everything's well.
Yeah, I haven't heard anything either. That's why I'm asking. I'm going to, like I told you before, I'm going to ask every time.
Yeah.
You know. You want to say something? From Paul? Come on. I can't bring you up here.
Melissa Barnes, Operations Manager, pause. The lights are working, yes. The AC, we have 2 rooms on the animal control side that are still not working. The company year-round is supposed to come and they're supposed to be there today, but they haven't come yet today, so I guess maybe they'll come tomorrow to look at the units, to see what's happening with that. 2 pumps are working. The 3rd one is somewhat working. We got word that the 3rd pump will be delivered this week, and so we're waiting for the 3rd pump to come to be installed, and that way we'll be fully running with air and such. And the big AC unit from Tangipahoa Parish that was loaned to us will be picked up this week.
Have you been, your complaints that you're still having, you've been running those through Reverend Giles?
Well, they told us that if we had any AC problems that we needed to call year-round.
You contacted directly? Okay.
Yeah, so we contacted them and let them know that we still have 2 rooms that are out of air.
Okay, I just...
Yeah, definitely, yeah. So we told you to go to them, and that's what we did.
Y'all went ahead with the contract with the AC repair folks? The year-round contract? Y'all signed that off?
Yes.
Okay, good.
Yes. And like I said, no one's been calling me, so I'm assuming everything's going well.
I haven't heard anything either. It was on the agenda. And
because our priority was to make sure, that's why we did it like that, to make sure A1 is there whenever they need. They're going to be there every month, and the lights are fixed, and the roof is not leaking.
Okay.
That's it.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
Next item, please.
Update on Noble Drive, Councilmember Black.
Yeah, I spoke to Mr. Beshel last night about it. We had that issue from Noble Drive from Woodland Highway to Barrier. I had about 4 or 5 different residents complaining, and during the process of repair, they had made some complaints that the repairs weren't being done properly. So I went out there and we noticed that they were wrapping some of the culvert with mesh material. I asked Mr. Beshel if that's correct. He said, yeah, it's correct. But he gave me a rational answer again and said that, it's muddy. We're trying to get we temporarily fixed till we can get the material, and then we'll go back and do it. So I'm taking Mr. Beshel at his word that they fixed it temporarily, which should last a few months to maybe 6 months, and that's going to be our priority project in my district. And when we have the ability, and Mr. Dugas moves me some money, we'll get it repaired. That's all. So thank you for the call, Mr. Beshel.
Thank you.
D8, approval of minutes from the August 23rd, 2018 meeting.
I'll offer. Seconded by Mr. Edgecombe. Yes, sir. For Noble Drive?
I received a text. I forgot something, not forgot, but they want me to add this in the District 1 comments.
Okay, you want to revert back to that? Okay.
Would you please?
Yes, sir. Before we
Thank you so kindly and appreciative of your political astute about answering to the councilman's needs for his constituencies. Even we know it's a political year,
And you have no competition.
All right, thank you. That's why I can say that.
Yes, sir. What would you like
All
to
right, on the Bel Air Road, the legal department at Bel Air Road, they're concerned about the next door owner is trying to put a fence to block a navigational waterway. And he said they petitioned the Corps to give them a permit that would allow them to close that. But we use that as a drainage of our pump station for that water to get out. And if they do put a fence, there's a strong possibility the Lilies will shut that down. And I don't know what else, but I'm just saying, if y'all on to that,
yes.
y'all looking into that, okay.
Came and talked to me about it yesterday. And
Okay.
Actually, already set it up to have an objection to the Corps.
Okay.
And, to start a legal.
Yeah, I appreciate it very much. They just reminded me to do that. They sent me a text on that, so I appreciate y'all diligence on that stuff.
We're all over it.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Madam Chairman, for your support.
Yes, sir. Anytime, anytime.
Number 8, approval of the minutes from the August 23rd, 2018 meeting.
I'll offer.
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Bartholomew and Mr. Edgecombe.
Question?
Machine is open to approve the minutes. He's gone. Minutes are approved by the 6 members that are here. Mr. Edgecombe's making a motion to adjourn the meeting. Seconded by Mr. Bartholomew. Machine is open for the adjournment. Meeting is adjourned at 5:02 p.m.